Welcome, Facebook Live. It is Thirsty Thursday.
Yes.
Jake Sanders and myself, Steve Crane, are here. I'm introducing this part because I feel like you,
Go ahead.
you were looking down at your phones. I'm like, hey, you always
Go ahead.
intro the audio
shares.
side. Yeah, go ahead and do the shares. We've got Jesse Hubbard tonight, who is an award-winning bartender. We'll get into that here. You get introduced like that on all podcasts now, don't you?
I require everybody to introduce me
As award-winning.
as such.
I heard you like to refer to yourself as a mixologist.
You
I'm
know
not-
better than that. You know better than that.
I love that part of that, the Dino's whiskey business. You're like, I will let someone call me that if I hear a fellow bartender call themselves that. You had an opinion about that, which I loved.
I do have an opinion about that.
You
yeah.
do, which is okay. So
We'll hear a
y'all
little
shared
more
up.
about that.
Indeed.
All right, then you go ahead and do a little bit here.
Alrighty,
I'll
so
share it.
I hope that everyone's enjoying their Thirsty Thursday. We're continuing the, I guess way of doing this on Thursdays for right now. But yeah, everything that Steve said, we're glad to have Jesse on.
We are doing the Thursdays. I do want to mention at the beginning of this, so if you tune in, we should mention at the beginning of the audio as well. But next week we are doing Wednesday because we do
With
have
Josh Bentley.
We had it, from Altadis. He's our sponsor, and we had him booked for a while there. We tried to reschedule him for Thursday. He's not able to make it. So next week will be Wednesday. Then we're back to Thursdays, and we'll try to keep everyone updated if anything changes on that. But just wanted to give a heads up on that.
And we know there's football season, so for those that college football season, so for those that do tune in to watch, we definitely appreciate it while you're watching football. So, like we always like to do, please share, and if you haven't left a 5-star review on our actual Facebook page, we'd really, really appreciate it. That's how we grow this thing. We appreciate all the comments that we get throughout the podcast and the community that has kind of been based around the live, and it's been awesome. So keep up the conversation, and don't forget that we do look at the comments, so we will acknowledge the comments throughout the podcast as well. And if you have any questions for any of us, or with Jesse as well, please go right ahead.
If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, that's fine too. Just
No, it's not.
Give us an honest review. No, give us an honest review, or at least send us a message before. And how can we make it a 5-star?
5-star review, or just don't leave a review.
It's like when
Right,
we,
right.
like at the Tinderbox, all like looking at a review and it's like, great place, great staff, had a really good time. I was there, 4 stars, and I'm like,
What do you need to do for that last star?
It's just not perfect.
Right?
I feel like there are people though that will just not give 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like people are ingrained that way.
Yeah, I mean 4 stars better than 1, so, or anything, you know what I mean. So
Absolutely.
it's all right. So as long as while Steve gets shared up, we encourage that, and then we talk about whiskey, we talk about cigars, and our life topic this evening is stay true yet always expanding.
Yes.
And then we'll kind of dive into kind of a cocktail scene, especially talking with Jesse and about his endeavors with his business and being the manager at the Great Southern Whiskey Bar in Columbus.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Indeed.
Yep. And we'll dive into that very, very shortly.
And what are we drinking and smoking?
So we're going to be smoking the BS Silver. I still can't believe that we haven't done it yet. But so on episode 82, we're finally doing the BS Silver with Brian and Steve from the Tinderbox.
Hey, I'm part of history.
Yep.
I had no idea.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yes. And then our second one is provided by Altadis. Thank you very much, Altadis USA, for our main sponsor. Aging Room Nicaragua is going to be our second cigar for our sponsored cigar this evening. And then we are going to be drinking the Glenmorangie Quinta Ruban, and we'll dive into information and history on both of those things. We hope that you guys are enjoying a sip of whiskey or something special tonight, and also puffing on something special as well. So if you are, let us know what those things are, and we'll dive into that. Okay?
All right.
Ready?
Good.
All right.
Yeah. Let's get this thing on the road.
Cool.
I don't like the new Facebook thing. Like you can't have it. You can't have landscape. It won't show comments.
I
Just
know.
so you know. Yeah,
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Ready, Nate? Happy Thirsty Thursday. I'm still getting used to that, Steve.
Yeah, it sounds weird.
A little bit.
Sounds weird, yeah.
Whiskey Wednesday just kind of rolls off the tongue there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Jake Sanders, along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 82. That's right, folks, 82. Thank you for tuning in. We talk about whiskey, we talk about cigars, and we talk about life, which we think that's what separates us from the rest of the pack, and we appreciate you tuning in. I need that.
Do you need this?
I need that.
All right, notes.
Notes, yes.
Go ahead.
It's always good when the notes are on the bottle.
Agreed.
So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We are accompanied tonight by not master mixologist, just because
award-winning bartender.
award-winning bartender and manager of the Great Southern Whiskey Bar of the Greater Columbus area, Columbus, Ohio, Jesse Hubbard. What's up, man?
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. Big fan of the show, so this is going to be a fun night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse is now reaching the bourbon whirlwind of podcasts right now in Columbus because he was on Dino's Whiskey Business, and now he's here.
Riding the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome, though,
it is
man.
Cool. It's a lot of fun.
It's great to have you. And you were talking, you did kind of tell us a little bit about the experience with Dino's podcast with Whiskey Business. I know his style is more interview, but I know you have made some cocktails for him, which is awesome and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Dino reached out to me a couple days before and said, I don't want to put you on the spot on the podcast, but would you like to make a drink for us and like to name it after the podcast?
That's awesome.
And I said, sure. The only requirement is that you have to pretend that you like it, even if you don't. At that point, you're in too deep. It's named after the podcast.
Yeah,
So, but
and you did a little bit of smoking there too, like smoking the cocktail, right?
Yeah, it was really fun. And then we recreated that at the bar, the Great Southern Whiskey Bar, and then kind of did a little cross promotion with them, and it was a lot of fun. I got to play with fire. I mean, who doesn't?
That's
who
why we
doesn't
smoke
want that?
cigars.
It's always fun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's awesome. But thank you, Jesse, for being here tonight. We really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
And who is sponsoring us tonight, Steve?
I think you know the answer to that.
I know.
All right, so we've got Altadis USA. So Romeo Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upman, Butera, Aging Room, Trinidad. Yeah, Trinidad. I'm trying to think of their whole catalog. It's a lot of brands that they handle and distribute. So we thank them. We are almost to a point of the second full year sponsorship. So we're going to see some changes, hopefully, coming up in the background with us and some other things.
Bigger and better.
Bigger and better, yeah. So it'll be interesting. We even have talks of some filtration for the winter months when we're all bundled up in here. So
that'll be nice.
It'll be interesting to go through a winter in the new garage. And then also Tinderbox at Easton. So we are smoking the BS Silver, which is technically our third sponsor.
You look confused.
By way of, I'm trying to draw a map without a whiteboard, but it is, BS Silver by way of the Tinderbox at Easton, who feature or basically contribute our featured cigar every week. So thank you to Brian and the rest of the staff and everything else for that. So
and yourself.
And I'm part of the staff.
I know.
And
too,
so they're our
kinda.
sponsors here every week. So thank you very much. And Jake, thanks for bringing the guest bottle, if you will, as Dino always calls it, the guest bottle.
Yeah.
I like that.
And Nate let us know this is our 100th bottle.
100th bottle
Yeah.
on episode 82.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That means we've had multiple bottles.
Yeah, let's do the math on that, right?
Yeah, no, Jesse's looking at it, he's like, I don't think, no, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, that isn't a bad thing. There's worse things to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like less bottles.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we ready to dive into the whiskey? Need anything else?
I need some of the actual featured whiskeys. So
Grab some.
Yeah.
Grab some.
I was drinking some of that David Nicholson Reserve, which I think is still, I don't want to call it a sleeper, but I just don't hear anyone talking about it. But everyone that sees it or has it, they're like, man, that's really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
that's how I feel.
35, I think, in the state of Ohio.
It's fantastic. We carry it at the bar, and it's a staff favorite, and people that know it come in and they get excited to see it. But it is a sleeper. It's not.
Yeah,
it doesn't fly off the shelves like it should, I think.
I feel like at least the stores I go to, it's a readily available bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's $35, so it's almost like. So I don't want to necessarily. I will. I think it's kind of in the ballpark of a good mid-30s bottle like an Eagle Rare. I prefer Eagle Rare over the David Nicholson Reserve, but it's something that I don't feel bad spending $35, time in, time out every time I go in there for something that I know I'm going to like, and everyone that I share it with is going to like it.
In this day and age, $35 is a steal.
It's a steal.
If it's something that's good, that's a steal.
But what's interesting is I think like that's the range for like people that don't like if you haven't tried it and you're going to grab it. I feel like the range that people are unsure of is like 35 to like 45, because it's like if a bottle's 50, naturally someone's already saying, oh, well, it has to be good.
And if it doesn't, knock their socks off, then it's a disappointment, really, at that point.
Right. But 35, it's not like it's like, well, do I really want to spend $35 if I don't want to know if I don't like it? But it's $35, so how good can it be?
If it's terrible, then $35.
Yeah,
so
but
once
most
you
people
get
don't
that
think
€5,
that
there's
way.
something about that clicks in your head.
For me, it's 40 and up anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
And when I see something like it that's like 2022, I'm just like, all right, it's
probably
hopefully it doesn't suck.
probably not amazing.
Yeah, it's either that or I'm gonna like clean something with it. If it's
there
that
you go.
bad, just kind of pour it on something like a driveway stain or something, see if it comes up.
I mean, relatively speaking, I mean, $40 for a bottle of whiskey is still, I mean, up there, I think.
I think so, but it's the new standard. I think.
I know. Yeah, for most bourbons and a lot of whiskeys. I mean, Scotch has been up there for years.
Yeah.
But anyways, before we dive into the whiskey, tell us a little bit about yourself, Jesse. Like, so you're the manager at the Great Southern Whiskey Bar.
Hey, I'm the bar manager there.
The bar manager, and how
The
many?
best manager to be.
Yeah,
I mean,
If you're gonna pick like food compared to bar,
when you have reps coming in,
Yeah.
giving you samples all the time and trying to,
Yeah.
you talk about products and promotions and stuff like that. I don't know any other job wherever I can, drink some whiskey or some beer or something like that at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday.
I feel like the kitchen manager's like talking like Gordon Food Services,
It's not
which
a-
is good. I mean, that's great.
It's a very important part of
I'm not. It's
what we do.
No, I'm saying it's just not as fun.
No.
You're like,
I'm with
yeah.
It's not as
I
fun.
know some.
Oh,
I've
it's a new
got some
celery.
good friends that are.
Cool.
Yeah.
but as they're
string celery.
creating different meals, you're creating cocktails
Yeah.
that are cool.
Yeah, and I just have a sip of each whenever they come in. Just
Duh. You got to test it, right?
Yeah.
But so how many years have you been in the industry, and kind of like just as a small introduction, like how did you start out, and now that you're here, it's
So yeah, we'll make a long story somewhat short here. Started off as a teenager, pizza delivery guy, dishwasher, stuff like that. Just like the odd jobs that you do when you're that age. Make a few extra dollars. Went to college, went back home to New Jersey after that to focus more on my career in radio. Did that for quite a while, and I've been in the actual bar industry for 8 to 10 years in various capacities.
Yeah.
But really for about a little bit over 8 years, about 8.5, been managing bars. So pretty quickly, once I made the transition into this industry, this world, I realized I wanted to go all in. So
Nice.
been doing it for a little while. I've been in Ohio here, in Columbus specifically, for about 14 months now.
oh wow,
Right about, I think. Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Just over a year, you've been.
Just over a year. This summer was a year. So
What brought you
June,
to
July.
Ohio?
So
Columbus specifically.
Yeah, Columbus specifically. So my wife and I have been married for a couple years, and we're talking about starting a family, and we want to be closer to our families as we do that. My wife's from Michigan, and her parents are up there about an hour north of Detroit, and my parents have since long ago settled in Ohio as well, and this puts us as centrally located as we can be while still having access to everything that we want.
Yeah.
Columbus is a cool city, man, and excuse me. We were in Louisville for 5 years, and we did not leave because we did not love it there anymore. And Louisville, Kentucky is just an amazing place to be if you are a fan of, bourbon and good food and all that stuff. So, to leave there was not an easy decision, but we really fell in love with Columbus, and man, it's just been great. We've since bought a house and putting down some serious roots here, and this is going to be our home.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
man.
thanks, man.
It's awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you guys. And it's a great town. It's no slouch when it comes to the stuff they're putting out of here. There's
There's a lot going on. It's definitely growing still.
Really good distilleries, really good breweries, restaurants.
Yeah.
It's just cool. It's a cool town.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than Louisville, which
Yeah.
is not something that people in Louisville are aware of.
Right.
They probably don't want to hear that anymore.
They don't want to hear it anymore.
I think with Ohio, you still think of like cowtowns.
They do. It's so in my life I consider both Ohio and New Jersey home, and I feel like all the time that I was in New Jersey, I'm defending Ohio because everybody's like nothing but cows and it's flat and it's boring.
Corn.
And all my time I'm in Ohio, I'm defending New Jersey. It's like,
I want to hear what they say about New Jersey.
It's that stupid show. Everybody has that misconception that it's just a bunch of, I'm half Italian myself and I don't act that way. You know what I mean? I'm not
on the air at least.
Not on the air.
You were around earlier. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Get the hair all spiked up, pumping your fist and all that. Those idiots ruin everything for us. So it's like nothing but like morons pumping fists and like smokestack factories out there. That's not what it is.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sounds gorgeous.
Lots of carnivals.
It's not what it is. It's a beautiful state. Lots of
the whole shoreline is a boardwalk.
It's amazing.
Not you guys too. Come on.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was born there, but I don't remember any of it because we moved away by the time I was 3 years old, and we moved to Chicago.
It's great.
So.
There's so much history there everywhere you go because of the early settlements in our country. So much of it happened out there. From like, where I grew up in New Jersey, I'm like 35 minutes from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The historical significance of everything out there is amazing, and where else can you go where you have access to Manhattan, Philadelphia, and the beach? It's beautiful.
There's a lot going on.
It's awesome. A lot going on. So,
for sure.
I got your back, New Jersey. Much love.
Well, anyways, diving into the Glenmorangie, the Quinta Ruban, a little bit of backstory. Well, first off, I mean, Jesse needs to get some in his glass, but have you
pass it on down there?
Have you tried a sip of it?
I took a sip of it. I have not had Scotch in a while.
We haven't had Scotch in a really long time on here.
Well, on here, no, but I'm trying to think. It was a few weeks ago I had some, but I think it was the La Santa. Is it La Santa?
La Santa, yeah.
I think that's the one.
That's in the sherry cask.
Yeah, Brad Grimsley was, who's been on the show before a couple times now. But when we were at one of the events locally, he actually bought a round of one of the Glenmorangies, and he's a huge, huge fan. So, that was the last time I had Scotch, and it was delicious. So I've had one sip of this. I'm going to have another one here. And interested to see how it goes with the BS Silver, with the pepper of the BS Silver. So
yeah, it was definitely interesting at the beginning, but we'll get into that. So a little bit of backstory of the Quinta Ruban by Glenmorangie. So this is a 12-year, well, really a 14-year-old expression that they did. So Glenmorangie, they do, or Glenmorangie, however you want to say it, They do 12 years in ex-bourbon casks, and then there's a bunch of different expressions that they do, and they work on a different. They like tweaking different things, right? So the La Santa's done with a sherry cask, and then what they normally do, that Brad is notorious for, he collects their annual releases, their distillery editions that they do every year, and they do different things with those, which some of the expressions are actually just phenomenal. But they like messing around with barrels and casks, which I find really cool. But so what they do is they use 12. They age their whiskey in ex-bourbon casks for 12 years, and then they age it in 2 years in port wine barrels that are actually from Portugal, right? So a little bit of background story of the actual name. Quinta, or Quintas, is inspired by their visits to the Quintas of the Iberian Peninsula. And Quintas is a Portugal word for estate. So a little interesting there, but it kind of, they're paying tribute to the velvetiness. I mean, if you look at this whiskey, it's got a ruber amber color, and it's actually very phenomenal.
Is that what Quinta Ruban is?
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So then that's where they're getting these port wine barrels, which they're Portuguese port wine casks. And they're obviously selected for that extra maturation that they do. And I'm glad that they do it. I think naturally port barrels have a very unique taste to them, especially when you put bourbon or any type of whiskey and age them in a port cask. But it's definitely phenomenal. This is a Scotch that I can actually really, really love and get behind.
Why do you say it like that? That you can actually get behind.
I just say it because it's...
Because this is interesting, because, what was it, 2 years ago when we were talking about it and we first got started, just Whiskey Wednesdays in the garage, and it was Jesse. You probably don't know this, but it was I liked bourbons. You know, I appreciated it. I was nowhere into bourbon. I was more of like a Scotch guy, Irish guy. You know, just because that's what I kind of drank, and even then I was like I appreciated a lot of different ones. I knew what I liked, what I didn't like, but I wasn't really like again diving straight in. But Jake's like, yeah, I don't like Scotch. I don't like Irish.
Just like immediately.
And it's like
I was very.
and we've had these
very-
conversations, just kind of like even like brands of cigars or like countries. You're like, yeah, I don't like Dominican cigars.
I
I'm
was
like,
closed.
Yeah.
I was closed
well,
off.
like on our wall
Yeah.
at Tinderbox, about a third or more are Dominican. Have you had this one? Yeah, I like that. That's Dominican. You know what I mean? It's like one of those
Yeah.
things. Like, what have you had? I don't know. I just know I don't like Dominican.
It's the preconceived notion that you might not like something, and you see that a lot. Like I don't.
Or you
and-
try something and
and
you
you have a bad experience.
well, and you
maybe.
you
Yeah.
put the whole
lump it all together.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're
This
exactly
is
right.
fantastic. I to my knowledge, I have not had a Scotch that was finished in port wine casks.
So is this a first for you?
To my knowledge, I've never had anything. It's really really good. I love some of the whiskeys, the bourbons, and the ryes that are doing this. And
Yes.
like the Basil Hayden dark rye is
Yep.
doing that.
Yep.
That's a favorite of mine right now. And this is a very unique Scotch, and that's I mean that as a compliment. I really like it. It's very very drinkable.
Yes.
And I think that people that may not think that they like Scotch would try something like this, and it would blow their minds a little bit that this is in that same arsenal, so to speak.
Yeah, and then just like what you said, Jesse, is that with like the Basil Hayden, they actually what they do is they actually put some of the port in there with theirs, which is kind of cool.
It is,
and
yeah.
it adds kind of a natural smoothness to the whiskey itself. But what I was meaning is that by a Scotch that I can actually get behind. I guess I shouldn't have said it like that, but it is true because
I think it's accurate. Yeah,
it is accurate because the only other one that I love that Steve introduced me to was Glenfiddich, but
Glenfiddich 15, I think it was to be exact.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Because you did like that, yeah.
Yeah, but so what I like about this one, and I'm a big fan of port too, so that's why I like this. But the fact that it's just there's so much richness that come out of port casks. So when you take a whiskey that was aged for 12 years and then you put it in a barrel that is rich as a port wine barrel and then age it for 2 more years, I mean, there's really something special that comes out of it. And so some of the notes that I get out of it, well, first off that I notice is the color. It's got a ruby amber color, which I mean you can tell. I mean the when you put the bottle up to a light, I mean it is dark.
Yeah, it doesn't look like your typical whiskey by any means.
Yeah, and at 45%, so you're sitting 46%. So you're sitting like right at 92 proof, I believe.
Right.
I like the expression because the expression of the whiskey because it's got a small bite to it, and then especially off of like a Glencairn, you still get like a nostril feel out of it. It's not just nothing to me, where normally I'm the one voicing that I wish that this was like at 100 proof or higher and blah, blah, blah. But
I don't think you get that as much with scotches.
No, but what I like about this is it still has that richness behind it.
Yeah.
And I think my problem with scotches is that I get bogged down by like citrusy notes and that it's light and I'm not searching. I'm a big flavor guy.
Sure.
So if something doesn't have something that sticks out to me, it's hard for me to grab it.
Yeah, no, it's got to get your attention.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like this is one for sure that will grab your attention right off the smell. And I mean, the citrusy notes are still in there. Like you still get like your orange and like lemon zest and stuff like that. But just that port and that wine is so prominent.
I'm getting apple. Do you get any apple?
Yeah.
I definitely get some apple out of it.
There's so many fruit notes in this.
And
And
Jesse, can you say that again into the mic a little bit better? Angle your mic a little bit. We're getting our producer. He's in my ear if I had an earpiece saying that. Yeah, you're
like
good.
that.
You're good.
We good?
Yeah, I just kind of lean over a little bit.
Yeah, I was saying that I'm definitely.
What do you get?
I get some apple.
There you go. All right,
Hey, for the first time. You didn't hear me before.
is it like a red apple? What kind of apple are we talking about?
Well, let's see here.
Wow, getting down to it.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I'll comment that I feel like that these types of things, and I don't know the timeline of this, but I feel as though that some of the other countries have been doing these types of experimental different casks to finish it more than a lot of the bourbons that have been hitting here in America. Like more recently, I feel like some of them are doing that. They're finishing, and maybe you guys know a little bit more than I do, but I think it's more common to do it because you're already taking used barrels for, Scotch and Irish a lot of times, and so now you're doing this with port cask, with sherry cask, with cognac cask, like all this stuff, and then now I'm seeing more bourbons hitting the shelves, being more popular doing that.
You are seeing a lot of it right now.
Yeah.
It's just, I think my thoughts on it are just the competition. People are trying to do stuff to stand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because to your point about, this guy, the David Nicholson from earlier, it's just something that's really, really good, but it kind of flies under the radar. So what do you do to grab people's attention? Sometimes it's gimmicky. Sometimes it's legit, but, depending on that, you got to do something.
What was the Basil Hayden's we just did?
That was the Caribbean Reserve Rye.
Caribbean Reserve, which was the follow-up to the dark.
It was the follow-up to the dark rye.
Yeah, which was
and they actually put actual Caribbean rum in it.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, they're blending that. At
you
that
had
point.
An 8-year Kentucky rye, 4-year Canadian rye, and then the Caribbean rum blended in it. Whereas the dark rye was again Kentucky rye, so that's Beam Suntory. So we figured it's probably coming out of one of the Beam distilleries.
Right.
And then you had port actually blended into that one.
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing.
So they're doing more than just finishing it in barrels. They're
blending.
They're making cocktails basically.
I would
in a barrel, right?
Yeah, right.
I would love to be
essentially
in that room.
doing that. Like for you, Jesse, like you're like, hey, here's your glass. It's a 50-some gallon barrel.
Right.
Get after it.
I was like, all right, I'll just pour it in a glass. Boom, we're done.
It's more alcohol, and more
mixology.
alcohol.
There it is.
There's the mixology. I do want to welcome anyone. We've already talked to the Facebook live crew here, but if you guys are listening to the audio or whatever, I mean, right now we mentioned Thursday nights. Next week is going to be Wednesday night. But I want to welcome some people that are listening here. So we appreciate you guys joining the conversation. Share it so that we can get more people on the live feed, that we can have a conversation with all of you. I think it's Avi or Avi. Avi, I assume, said, I missed what cigar you're pairing it with. Avi, if you're not local, I can't remember if you are or not, but the BS Silver, and it's not going to be a national brand. It is blended by Espinosa. We'll get into it a little bit, but it is a local favorite and basically a store brand that we have. So we'll get into that a little bit later.
Jesse, do you just smell out of that Glencairn for a second,
all right,
and take away from the apple, the citrus notes.
Okay.
There is a deep chocolate note down there, and I love it. It's like a dark. It's like a dark cocoa.
But it wasn't initial for me.
Right.
It's
after you have a few sips.
You get a few sips, and then it's kind of coats your tongue a little bit.
My nose is stuffed.
While you're smelling it. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I can't smell.
Really?
I mean, I can a little bit, but not in here. And I've got.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
But it's
got
fun.
BS
That's
Silver
the
blowing
experience,
up my right
right?
nostril
It's
here too.
the evolution of the first couple drinks you take kind of sets you up for that, and then you get to the.
And surprisingly enough, I still do love this, even though it has a little bit of a peatiness essence to it. It does have a little smoky.
It's subtle for me.
Yes, it's very subtle.
I barely get that.
Yeah.
Bobby Crow says it's like a chocolate-covered coffee bean smell. You think he's accurate there?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd say that?
Yeah. Or
okay.
like a chocolate-covered raisin. I know I use that a lot I just love that note.
Yeah.
The fun thing about that is if that's what he gets, and that's what he gets. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what's so cool about it.
It's a little bit different for everyone, obviously. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I love about it.
What I was wondering is what this would be like if they refired, or if they fired the port casks.
You're asking, you don't know if that's happening.
They don't do that. They don't do that. But I mean,
I don't know if that'd be good or not.
I don't know either.
I feel like you'd lose a lot of what you're loving about this, the port aspects of it, especially for me. That I get more of a port finish.
Yeah,
all the subtleties will be gone.
I mean, even it's like a subtle finish, like a port, where it's not quite as thick, or like that real thick viscosity.
Yeah,
but it kind of has that lingering flavor for me of a port after I had a couple glasses of whiskey, right, and then I had a glass of port to finish the night. Or after dinner.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of getting as far as overall experience.
Yeah. Anyways, I love this.
As do I.
Around that $60 mark, so it's kind of pricey for your everyday sipper, but I think that The first time that I had this was Brad was actually gracious enough to give me a bottle, and he's a big Glenmorangie fan.
Huge.
And so when he gave it to me, I tried it, and I've yet to drink this and have a cigar and not like the pairing. So this is one that I'm interested to hear.
You mentioned the price on that too. I mean, I feel like, in the States mainly, Scotch, it used to be the $40 mark, for a good bottle of Scotch, or like a starting point. It was like 40, 45, and now all those have creeped up to the, like we were talking about Glenfiddich 15.
Yeah.
It was $45, 10 years ago. Now it's like 55.
Yeah.
And now you got these, popping out that, like a $40 bottle, or like I've seen some under $40 bottles of Scotch, and it's almost, they're trying to dip down to match some of the popularity of the bourbons. Where you got the bourbons. I think we mentioned this before on the podcast. It's like you have this where like the bourbons are starting to creep up, and the Scotches aren't necessarily going down in price, but they're introducing new bottles or new blends, if you will, that are like dipping down just to meet that kind of popularity that the bourbons have right now. I think it's really interesting when you walk through the liquor shelves and you see these different bottles, and you're like, I've never seen this Scotch before. And it's like you got one sitting that's, it's like $90 right next to an offering that's like 38.
Yeah, you're not going to take a gamble on that 90 if you never had it before. At least I'm not. That's a lot of money to gamble something on. But that is a positive side to the bummer that is the bourbon price is going up steadily.
Yeah.
So something, and 60 is $60, but this is amazing. Like I feel like that's a bargain for this. $60 for this. I feel comfortable recommending this to somebody and saying that's a good price.
Yeah, and you have a 14-year-old whiskey.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But I still think, Bobby mentioned it as well. It's cheaper than going out and drinking. You think about it, it's like you go to a bar, and granted, you're not going to necessarily spend $60 on yourself. It's easy to do in some places, but
it sneaks up on you.
It sneaks up on you. That bar tab plus tip and everything else for the experience that you got Jesse across
Especially
the bar.
in Columbus.
But it's just one of those things, though. You think about it, you can justify things, I think, any way you want. $60 for a bottle.
Yeah.
They may just have at the house, and you're not necessarily sharing it. But if you're going to have that many glasses with, 3 or 4 buddies, and you're like, hey, let me get these. Yeah, these at a bar.
It's going to cost you a lot more than 60.
You're way up there. You're way up there.
That's a great way to look at it, too.
Buy a bottle at 60 that maybe that's the way to do it is at a bar you try it. And you're like, I'm going to try this. I really like it. Now I'm going to go buy a $60 bottle that might last a normal. I say normal because I wouldn't consider any of us normal drinkers, but a lot of times in people's households, a bottle is going to last like 2 months, But
yeah.
So I think $60 for what you're doing. I think it's all relative. We spend money on different things, but going to a bar, you can drop $60 in a night, and everyone's going to be like, "Yeah, it was a great time" and all that stuff. Well, you can also spend $60 on a bottle, and it may last you more than a night if it's just you.
You go to some of the cocktail bars, not just in Columbus, but in any major city across the country, that's like 4 drinks. That's 4 cocktails.
Yeah.
And, they go down quick.
Yeah, they do. When they taste good.
When they taste good, yeah. Or if they're really bad, you get rid of it quick.
Yeah, exactly.
But to your point, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
I think so.
Yeah.
I did want to thank little shout out to Tony and the Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados for giving us. They gave us a Glencairn glass, and they also gave us a rocks glass. So thank you, Tony and the Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados, for giving us those awesome gifts.
Well, and support too, because I share that every week to them, and Tony always supports us and allows us to share it to their group. So
and they don't have a problem
amazing.
with it, so which is great.
No. So I will kind of. It's funny. We got a couple people saying, what this would probably pair well with, and those that know the BS Silver, it may not be my first choice, to go with this, but so we did the BS Silver because I feel like it's more relevant to our guest tonight. Where to go into this, we've talked about the BS Silver, we featured the BS Gold over a year ago, which was the original blend from the BS. Which the BS, for those of you that aren't local, you haven't had it. We've talked about it a lot, but it stands for Brian and Steve. So I had some influence in this blend. We worked with Eric Espinosa. We went down to Miami, where he's out of, and he's got a factory in Nicaragua. So Jesse's kind of learning this for the first time, I think.
Yeah.
And this is a Nicaraguan Puro. So you got a Habano Rosado Oscuro wrapper on it, which is very, very popular. In fact, Bobby mentioned the My Father, which we just got their new Promesa in today, but I didn't want to grab it. We're going to let it sell for a week and maybe have it next week or maybe the following week after Josh Bentley. But I think, this is something that Habano Rosado Oscuro wrapper, Nicaraguan, and it's Criollo, Corojo tobacco. I'm not going to get into the whole blend because it's kind of proprietary.
Is the Criollo and stuff, is that the Vitola? Am I using the
Criollo is the seed.
Okay.
So you got Habano, you got Criollo, you got Corojo in this blend.
And the Vitola is the leaf?
Vitola is the shape.
The shape.
That's good review, actually. So, the Vitola is the shape. So this is a Toro. It's a 6x54, which was our original size for the BS. And this is definitely more medium to full, and then it's got some pepper to it. So I can see what Bobby was saying there when he loves the BS, but I think it would pair better with a different cigar. I don't disagree with it. I don't think this goes poorly together, but if I was going to pick something, it might be something with less pepper because of the sweetness that I'm getting, some of that the port finish on the whiskey, some of the flavors you guys are talking about. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the BS Silver takes away from it, but I do think that the pepper is not something that I would typically choose to go with even just a port or a whiskey. Certain cigars I think would go better with this, but I don't dislike this combo.
So let me ask you this, because I'm a novice when it comes to cigars. I really enjoy smoking a cigar with a pour of Scotch or whiskey. Mm-hmm. I really like it, and I'm enjoying this very much.
Good.
What are you looking for in a cigar, ideally, to pair with what we're drinking today? So you say it's something a little less peppery.
I would,
I'm interested personally because I want to,
hey,
I'm going to go out and get that because I'm enjoying the hell out of this.
See, and again, it's like you said, as far as the nose earlier, if that's what they get out of it, that's what they get out of it, and everyone's going to get something different. I think that's the same way that most palates will work. I mean, you see that as a bartender that, you have someone come in, they like something, you're able to recommend something maybe different that is branching off of what they're enjoying.
Well, and
that's the goal, right? Yeah.
Well, that's the goal, to try something new. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Stay true. You'd always always be expanding type
Absolutely.
thing.
And it depends on what you're trying to do too. Like if you think about it, we've talked about it just in recent weeks, but it depends on whether or not are you trying to pair the cigar with the whiskey, or are you trying to pair the whiskey with the cigar? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So I think that
because who's the headliner, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you get different flavors even if you take a puff of the cigar and then take a sip, or if you take a sip and then take a puff of the cigar. So it's really basing off what is your base, and then what are you trying to complement it with?
Yeah, so Avi says a Maduro, talking in general, which Maduro, if you don't know, Jesse and anyone out there, Maduro is going to be a darker shade wrapper. This is close to it, right? So this is a Habano Rosado Oscuro. Oscuro is actually a term that's used in the cigar world that is going to be darker than a Maduro. But with it being a Rosado wrapper, Oscuro is not going to be your typical, really, really black. I mean, the way they ferment this and everything is dark for a Rosado wrapper, but not necessarily compared to what else is out there. So a Maduro with a little more sweetness to it is what Avi says. And I would agree with that. I'm actually thinking there's a couple cigars, but one that stands out would be maybe like a CLE Prieto, which is going to be a little richer. There's not a whole lot of pepper to it or spice. It's just kind of a rich kind of mouth coating. Christoph Maduro might be too much for me. So for those of you that are cigar smokers out there, I would agree with Avi. Look for something that's going to be a richer flavor. It would go well with medium stuff too.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what it tastes like with Nicaraguan.
Yeah, we should definitely kind of hold on to that. What do you got there? The Trinidad, again, medium body. I think that Trinidad, that new Espiritu that we've been talking about,
Great
I think
cigar.
That's just lights out. It's everyone that smokes it likes it.
And Altadis.
And that is Tyler Jones says Mi Querida. Maybe I think that's getting close to it.
I think that'd be a little much.
Sin Compromiso from if you're going to go Steve Saka Dunbarton, I think the Sin Compromiso would definitely pair well with this because you've got that rich flavor, not a ton of overwhelming spice or pepper. Because again, that's kind of for my palate. To your point, Jesse, is that it's something for me that I'm not going to necessarily want with this particular one. I think this BS Silver goes better with that David Nicholson.
That was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so I think it would pair a little bit better with that. But again, I mean, it doesn't pair
about
poorly. I don't think this is a bad matchup.
What do you think about the Murcielago?
Murcielago, I think too dry.
Okay.
I love that cigar, but again with this, I want something that's going to keep me kind of salivating going from the cigar, going to this, because I get that.
Like a wetter tobacco.
I mean, like, so, you know, we had someone on there also say something about, you know, this whiskey. I think it was Bobby again. He's pretty active tonight, which we appreciate that participation in the conversation.
Active.
Well, when he's on, he is. But he had kind of said that, you know, it kind of has a melt in your mouth finish.
Yeah.
This whiskey.
It's a chocolate-covered raisin, man.
Yeah, kind of like that. So, but yeah, so I mean, that's one of the reasons we talked about this or brought this BS Silver on, is because of the process of blending with the cigar. You know, we went to Eric Espinosa with this. If I can kind of give a little bit of history here, it is kind of like coming up with, and I'm interested to see where you go with this, Jesse. It wasn't necessarily that we started with Puritos like we're going to be doing in a couple weeks of the Tinderbox with Ryan Ponist from Alec Bradley, but it was, we told them what we wanted ideally. So this is the wrapper. This is kind of the smoke we want. We want to use Nicaraguan Puro. We want to use these tobaccos ideally. We had a couple different paths. And then working with Eric and then his man Hector. Hector's kind of his operations / master blender. When we arrived there, after they gave us this amazing Cuban meal, fantastic. I mean, I've told the story before, Jesse, but you'll love it. It's like Cuban hospitality is ridiculous. Like, I'm sitting there, and by the end of the meal, you had Eric's wife basically just using her hands to give me more pork. You know what I mean? Like, oh, no, you need to eat more. We got so much, you know, all this stuff. It's that kind of like what you would imagine. You said you're half Italian. That's very comparable.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking, right? Yeah, you know this. You know
Mangia, more pasta.
Yeah, you know that dinner table. So, I mean, we're sitting there, and we had 5 different blends that they had, like Tinderbox, and then they had basically a code of what it was. You know, what wrapper and binder, and then what core. The core would be like the filler. And we basically smoked, you know, a quarter of each of the cigars, maybe less, you know, and like where we're at with it. You like it, you don't like it, where are we at, you know, what do you want more of, what do you want less of? And so it's like we had a couple ashtrays going, and I can show you a picture later. I mean, it was ridiculous how many cigars. We went through like 20 to 30 cigars in that night, and most of them were like quarter of the way through before we actually sat down and smoked a full cigar together. But it was like, all right, so we're going, all right, that's not, you don't, let's go off of that. All right, put that in that ashtray, put that over here. And then basically by the end of it, we had like a top 5. And it was something as simple as they even had, like, so Hector just kept reaching behind the, you know, to his like huge humidor, like with a bunch of different cabinets. He's like, all right, I mean, like, it pulls out a bundle. He's like looking at the code on it. He's like, no, that's not it. And looks at this one. He's like, all right, this one. So smoke this. What do you think of that? You said you liked this in that cigar, but you didn't like this in that cigar. And we lit it up, and we're like, all right, we're smoking that. And you're like, yeah, actually, I see where you're going. Like, that actually does kind of fit that. He's like, all right, so that's the same wrapper, same core. It has one of the, like, so like a Corojo binder and a double binder, so Corojo and then a Criollo. This has a double Criollo binder. Everything else in the cigar is the same. I mean, it's just ingredients, right? Yeah. So you take this out and put this leaf in, and you get that like kind of
subtle difference makes in the you know, the taste makes so much of a difference.
It's kind of like a cocktail. You're like, all right, I'm gonna use these bitters instead of these bitters, and then you drink it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's 10 times better of what I was searching for.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're like testing cigars like that and creating something, is it like whiskey where, like, I can imagine, well, and I know for a fact that like a distillery's like tasters, like they only do like 5 tastes and then they're done for the day. Because so how can, I mean, this was like a small operation though, and more of a boutique style of doing things with you guys, but obviously what I guess, do you feel like you, I mean, obviously you still got things out of it, like nuances and different tastes of different cigars, but did you feel like towards the end like you could even taste anything?
Yeah, so
I mean, I feel like really that would be tough.
No, it's really
that's a great question.
So there's 2 that we had in. We flew down for this trip. We flew down, and it was like we flew in on a I think it was a
Gulfstream 550.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. No, it wasn't that. God, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Living the life.
Yeah. While we were smoking on the plane. No.
24 karat gold plate. Ashtrays.
No. All right, we're not there yet. But yeah, please support the BS. So if you guys are interested, call the Tinderbox at Easton
and
or
the
email.
podcast.
Go
podcast
ahead.
playing right
and
there.
mention the podcast. No, so with Eric, I'll kind of be specific on our technique with him. They use basically some sort of like a powder, and it's like a very citric like acid type of a powder.
Oh,
so and it was like that was their palate cleanser.
Nice.
So it kind of shocks it. It's a very, very tart, very sweet. And it's
cool.
funny because if you guys, if you want to meet Eric Espinosa, he'll be here in October on the podcast and actually at an event, and he is phenomenal. Anyone that has met him would probably
dude. Great guy.
Echo that. So they put a bag down, and it's just a Ziploc baggie, and there's this kind of whitish, a little off-white color powder.
Is it like is it a powder?
Oh, fuck yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
So this is the experience. So we're sitting around and we're just in there like little, like the back is a warehouse, the front is like they all have like these little desks, and Eric's got his office, and so they basically come out and it's like they just like kind of plop it down on there. You're like all right, so between the cigars, you guys just take a bump off of that, and they do that obviously for
sure.
Did you roll $100 bill or was it just
we
$1?
Yeah, no, it was. We're not that fancy. Jeez.
What's the highest bill made?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we use.
No, so what you did is that honestly, we'd smoke a cigar. Now, mind you, we were drinking. We were drinking that blue label, the Havana Club Maestros. Grupo de Maestros. Okay. We were drinking that. So Eric, that was another thing about the hospitality. It was like, if my glass was here where it's at currently, Eric was pouring as she's putting more pork on my plate. I got Eric over here pouring into my glass. Like, hey, what's going on here?
Speaking of which,
go ahead. So we would do that. We would take, basically like you got do that, put your pinky or whatever in, on your tongue just to get it a little bit moist.
This was
dip
just
it in the bag.
Pure citric acid.
Yeah. And you do that, put it on your tongue, and just kind of like let everything flush.
Stuff is potent.
Very. You don't want much of it, right?
No. I've used it for cocktails, and you dilute it way down.
Yeah. No, this was just a bag.
Yeah.
And
wow.
You do that. You just literally touch the tongue, and then all of a sudden it just fucking lights up. And that's your palate cleanser. So then you get back into it, right? And then, of course, we're sipping on Havana Club. We killed that bottle. We were drinking something else. Then we were drinking Cuban coffees. I had like 4 that night. Never had Cuban coffee before. I didn't realize that it's like a huge espresso as far as strength. I mean, we're talking like this big, and then they put just raw sugarcane in it. So you just like imagine it was like 10:30 at night when I had my first one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we were also just pulling on cigar after cigar after cigar. So that
2
was
days later, whenever you finally went to sleep.
No, it's funny. And then you had the hospitality. I love this story, so I don't want to bore anyone with it. But it was funny. Like the end of it, Eric's had picked us up in the Nissan Armada, which is the big SUV, right? Like 18 passengers. I think it's like 8 or 9 passenger. But he's like, "Oh, bro, go ahead and take the Armada back, the 4 of you," because it was my girlfriend at the time, and then Brian and his wife. And he's like, "Yeah, just go ahead," because they came and picked us up at the hotel. He's like, "Just go ahead and take it back to the hotel, and bring it back tomorrow. I know you need to get around tomorrow because we were going to Casa Fernandez the next day to do the other tasting. That we were expanding the BS Gold and working on a project with them." And I'm like, "No, Eric, I don't know. I've never been to Miami. First of all, I don't know my way around, and I don't feel comfortable driving if I knew where I was. You know what I mean? I'm like jacked up on caffeine and sugar. I've had the equivalent of probably like 8 cigars since I've been here, and I drank, at least half a bottle of rum with you." And he's like, "No, bro, it's fine. Just, that's what insurance is for." I'm like, "No, that's not what we're doing here." So like, wow. I look over at Brian. I'm like, "What do you want to do, man? Like, I don't want to be rude, again, that hospitality."
Sure.
So he's like, "Just order the Uber and then just apologize." And I was like, "Oh yeah, thanks. Now I have to do that." You know what I mean? So that's exactly what happened at the end of it. It's like, "Oh yeah, the Uber's almost here." He's like, "What, bro? I told you, take the car." And I'm like, "No, we're good. We're good." So that was the blending, and then so from there we had our top 5, and it was something that we brought those back to Columbus and re-smoked them, and Brian and I talked about them, and then we kind of went back to Hector mainly because he was the one working on the project with us, and he we told him like, this is our favorite, but we want a little bit more of this or a little less of that still. And he was able to tweak it, and then it was like 2 to 4 weeks later we'd get the next batch of samplers. And this, honestly, for the BS Silver went on for it was somewhere in the ballpark of 12 to 18-month process just because of the timeline,
yeah.
And every step of the way. we went back and forth. So we're happy with it. I'm glad you guys like it. I'm glad that people that have smoked it like it.
And there's 3 Vitolas.
So yeah, with this one we have this one 6x54, and then we also have a 6.5x58, which they should be done soon. And then we have that Rubito size, which is 6x46.
What's the size of the 6x58? Is that considered a Gordo, or what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would consider that a Gordo. It's not quite a 6x60. It's a little longer and just a hair thinner, but I mean, it's a pretty stout cigar.
So you have a Gordo big, and then Toro medium,
6x54,
and then Rubito kind of skinny.
It's skinnier, yeah. It's not quite I wouldn't call that a Lancero,
which is the newest
Nate's
edition.
got it, held up right there. Yeah, that was the one we did event only. That's the one I did as a surprise with Hector. Which these guys are awesome down there. I mean,
that's a pepper bomb.
That's a pepper bomb.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd like this story too, Jesse. Just briefly, like when we were doing the last Smoking 10 event, it was the store and Brian Joyce, who's the owner of Tinderbox at Easton, 20th anniversary. So I did something special under the radar, which was a gamble because we weren't even actually booked for the event yet because we were going through this, and that's another story we've told. But I asked Hector, I was like, hey, I want to do like a special size, and I want to do like 400 of them, and it was like 6.5 weeks before the event, which normally you want to at least have 8-week, time if they can start. I talked to him on a Wednesday before a podcast, and he's like, "Hey, man, like, if you can tell me." They all say, "Bro," right? So he's like, "If you can tell me tomorrow, I'll bump you ahead of all the other projects, and I'll get one of the rollers to roll you 400 of these cigars if you give me the green light, and they'll be ready for you in about 6 weeks. So it'll be pushing it tight, but yeah, I can get it done, but you have to tell me tomorrow." And so we did that, and so we did 5 packs with a sticker on it. Brian opened it up, and everyone seemed to like the size enough that we brought it out as a regular release. So it's great. It's that kind of community. Cool. You know what I mean? Like you know a lot of liquor reps, and
that's amazing.
There's a tight knit community in the cigar world, just like there is in the whiskey and the other spirits.
It's really cool. Yeah, I'm listening to these stories, and it just like the similarities between the two worlds it's fascinating to me. It's really cool.
That's why we do the podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to learn about something that I enjoy, but I do not know much about. So I love that kind of stuff, most definitely.
What do you think of the pairing? You said you like it, Jesse?
I like it, but you guys are talking about there's a little bit of a pepper aspect to this. I enjoy that. I like peppery in wine. Yeah. I like it in rye whiskey. I like it in cigars. It's something I really enjoy. So that's why I was curious what you thought would be the best combination between the two, because I really enjoy it, but maybe there's something else that'd be, even better as like what you were saying.
So what kind of wine do you think that this would go better with than a port?
Oh,
or a whiskey for that matter.
Well, I mean, whiskey, I think it would go really good with, something that we can't really get here, unfortunately, but Willet Rye, which I really, really like.
We got some.
You guys have some? I have a bottle at my house, too. That's one of my favorites.
I got 2 3 years downstairs, but I'm not going to crack them.
That's one thing that's...
I understand.
That's why I can't get that one anymore.
I don't blame you.
That's Christmas. Come over around Christmas time. We'll have a glass with BS Silver.
That's one thing that's very prevalent around this podcast is Willet Rye.
I love Willet. There you go.
The Old Forester Rye would work, too.
Yeah,
that one's interesting.
But
how about wine? I've got a couple ideas, but I'm interested to see.
Well, what do you think?
Just in categories, I'm thinking like a red Zinfandel, like just an old vine like Zinfandel.
Sure.
What about a Merlot?
Malbec.
Yeah.
Or Malbec.
Yeah.
Merlot. I don't know that. I don't know that much about wine.
I'm thinking like more of a drier red.
Like a Syrah or something like that.
Huh?
Like a Syrah or something like that.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that I was thinking about. Something like that.
I think the Malbec, you get I get a lot of pepper, a lot like spice out of some of those.
Anything from Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I guess
exactly.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, most definitely.
Let me ask you this question, Steve. So being that you and Brian formulated this together, what is this every day, anytime cigar? Picturing it in your head, what would be a good setting for this cigar? Anytime.
For me, yeah, anytime.
I kind of knew that, but I figured I'd ask.
First thing in the morning in bed, you light up, you know what I mean? You roll over, grab your cigar, cut it, and just light it up in bed.
Are you in a velvet robe? Is it
no,
velvet?
Much less.
Much less.
Okay.
I don't want to picture that, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's
I'm
too
glad.
late.
Thank you for the visual.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm kind of over the top. I mean, you imagine, the hat, I get it, but it's all right.
You can wear a hat in bed while you're smoking.
Like,
if you want to wear that hat in bed while you're smoking,
I'd have to do
fine.
the velvet like robe, like my initials on my slippers that match the robe.
Do you have any of this stuff?
No, but it's
so you're not.
It's dreaming. That's
Dare
what I
to
just
dream,
said.
man.
Yeah, like
Gotta have those life goals.
yeah, like if I could be a
dreaming.
1920 bootlegger,
first of all, you can,
gangster.
I get that.
I'd be that.
But this isn't a dream, man. This can be a reality. I mean, this like all that
I'm
stuff,
trying.
or just start with a BS Silver in bed and see what Alicia says.
Bourbon and BS
That
branded
wouldn't
velvet
go over
slippers.
well.
Branded
There you go. I like
velvet robe.
Get that logo on
Yeah.
like
There
a
you
couple
go.
of nice,
Orange.
like a terry cloth.
Orange velvet robe
Orange.
with purple slippers
I feel
to
like
match
we derailed here.
It's getting
BS.
weird, y'all.
Nate's about to interject here.
What
Like,
about
hey
a
guys,
silver
remember we're
robe?
doing a podcast?
What about a silver robe?
No, that's nah.
Like
Because it's the
metallic?
BS
Are we talking
That's too
metallic?
plain.
Because it's the BS Silver.
That's too plain.
No,
man.
metallic silver robe is actually like almost
or
like
with gold
I
highlights.
got you, man. I
It's
get
like
it.
what
Alright,
astronauts would
alright.
wear.
I
I
get
feel
We
it.
like.
shot you down,
But
but
I
I get
wear,
it.
but I wear a lot of gold. You got to wear like if I'm wearing my gold ring. the
So a
silver-
gold robe, like the BS Gold, with
So
some
now you're
silver
Scarface.
Naturally,
Now you're a
yes.
different type of gangster.
Yeah.
You're like,
This
let's
is
fast
the guy that's
forward.
down in Miami with the
Yeah,
white
exactly.
powder. You're calling him
Exactly.
Scarface. Get out of here.
Yeah, bullshit on the whole like gangster, like prohibition time. You're like, no, full blown 70s, 80s, like mob.
Yes.
Yeah, so much cocaine everywhere. Speaking of cocaine,
Speaking of cocaine,
no,
Nice segue.
the follow up of that, that bump on the table. You know what I mean? We were talking about with the
right?
citric acid.
Right.
We before we left, he's like, hey, for tomorrow we were doing tastings with Casa Fernandez. He's like, hey, just take some. So they don't even get another zip. They don't even get another Ziploc bag. They take like a bundle from a
10
cigar, right? So you got this like little like cellophane thing with it's a loose shape with a rubber band around it with just powder in the bottom. And so we take it back to the hotel, and we're waiting on the Uber, and I come down from my room, and I'm with Brian, and the girls all went wherever they went, and we're standing out waiting on this Uber, and I'm like, dude, I brought this. Like, do you want to? And Brian's like, no, I don't want, Paul from Casa Fernandez to know that we were with like someone else last night blending as well. I'm like, all right,
That's fair.
so I take it back in, and we're at Sofitel by the airport, which is like as Miami of an airport or a hotel as you can be in. Everything's white, all this stuff, and so I walk in. I'm looking around for a trash can, and sure enough, there's just one in between the two elevators. And I got this bag, and I look in the trash can, and it's like over 3/4 full. So I just kind of drop this plastic thing, not even a real bag, with powder in it with a rubber band around it. And it's basically just sitting at the top of this trash can.
It's Miami. I'm sure they thought nothing of it.
I'm sure someone picked it up and were like, "Oh, sweet!"
Yeah.
Someone must have had to catch a flight.
They tried to sell it and then they got
no,
killed.
they
for
probably
it.
tried to sniff it, and all of a sudden they had citric acid up their nose. Imagine that.
That's not pleasant.
Yeah, that's gonna make you sneeze.
So we got a few things to get covered through.
Are we done talking about cocaine?
People are
yeah.
asking questions.
Yeah, people are asking.
Are they
questions.
asking about cocaine
So
or
naturally,
citric acid?
naturally it's Bobby Crow. So, so Bobby asked Steve, what would you think the best bourbon would be with the BS Silver?
That's tough. I actually think it would go with some ryes that I like the E.H. Taylor Straight Rye. I think a couple of ones, even the more, I don't want to call them basic ryes, but I kind of think is not as unique, like the Old Forester Rye, things like that. I don't think they're as unique as like the Willet 3-year,
Yeah,
which I prefer
everyday
over the
ryes.
4-year.
Yeah.
The everyday ryes. So you get some of those food flavors.
You don't think that'd be
a
too
little
much
bit warm
spice?
No, because I think it's different. It's like more of a warm spice. Now, he mentioned, an Oliva V. This isn't quite as potent as an Oliva V, I don't think. I think there's more pepper to it, but yeah, I think any of that stuff. I mean, I've smoked the BS Silver with several ryes. I've smoked it with. I don't want too much burn, so I wouldn't say anything with too much heat as far as a whiskey, because I think that would be just unpleasant. Again, going from that pepper.
Yeah.
And then that's already
Little bit
kind of
of overkill.
stimulating it. And then all of a sudden, you get something that's got a lot of heat, and you're not refreshed at all. It's just you're kind of like just challenging yourself.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not gonna drink water until like 5 minutes from now, type of a challenge. You know
And
what
that's
I mean?
funny because ryes, technically speaking,
water now.
are mostly are considered hot and spicy.
I don't see.
I know, but we think differently.
Dustin
but technically
says.
speaking,
Dustin says Woodford Rye. Nate says Knob Creek 12-year
Woodford Rye would
Ezra-
be cool.
I just
the Ezra Brooks Rye.
I look at ryes. I don't get that kind of real overpowering.
We get food flavors from it.
I get more food. So I get like a
Christmas.
spice, but it's
get-
not like a pepper spice. It's like a So some of those we described, Jesse, as Christmas Day.
Sure.
So like a Willet Rye 3-year, we mentioned that Straight Rye E.H. Taylor, same thing. It's like this, like there's a sense of like a ginger snap spice. You know what I mean? Like a food.
Yeah, like there's like a
ginger,
like a spicy gumdrop.
Yeah.
Almost in some of them.
But it's not like a jalapeno. It's not like
No.
a pepper. It's
That's
like
that kind
this
of
like
nutmeg,
lingering
cinnamon.
I guess you say spice
Yeah.
and it can be taken a lot of
Ginger.
different ways, but
It's like
Absolutely,
baking
yeah.
spices.
yeah, I'm right there with
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable, like
And then Ohio Bourbon Times and Scott GK says my favorite bartender.
Hey Scott, you're the man. I love
Yeah.
you, buddy.
We've had Scott on here too.
Yeah,
so
I know.
It's awesome.
Scott's a good dude.
Yeah.
Best of the best.
So going into a little bit more of your background, I had a few questions for you, Jesse, with
Absolutely.
kind of just mentioning your background.
Okay.
I'll edit this out.
Can you
but
edit
before,
that out,
yeah,
please?
save. Save, and I'll go back. We're going to do that save that we're talking about. So those of you on Facebook Live, this is the time we're going to do the save. Nate is doing that right now. This is a great time for you guys to share it as well. Ask Jesse a question that you don't want in the audio, but something that would be only in the video. Not to put you on the spot, but I just did.
Yeah. It's pretty tough.
And he's gonna put me on the spot, so just pay it forward.
Or I
Yeah,
can ask. You want me to
that's- yeah, go ahead.
what you guys got?
I'll do this just because this is just like more of a personal thing. We can ask it again, but so you were in, and you kind of said you were in the radio side of things. You've had a couple other jobs, and now you're in the bartending.
Sure.
You've got a family starting, right?
Yes.
The hours. You know,
Yeah.
you talked about
Hey.
Jake with his, you're asking him, what's he doing and all this stuff, third shift, and everyone's like, oh, man,
Yeah.
third shift, I did that, or I had someone that I know do that. Like, man, that's tough. Bartending, I mean, I don't know if you got the same hours every night, but I doubt it. I mean, it's like one of those
Yeah.
things, like you've got different
Yeah.
shifts as different days you're working depending on the rest of the availability. I don't know how your bar works, but how does that, get into the family life? Because you say you love what you're doing. Well, once the kids come or whatever you're going to do,
Right.
and you have the spouse now, you just made a movie a year ago. Like those aren't like it's not a 9 to 5, 8 to 5.
No,
I mean, this
sir.
is
No,
like
sir.
there's a lot of
It's
up
like
in the air.
4 to 4.
I mean, I'm gonna. Yeah, it's weird.
One night, and then the next time you're done
It
at
can
11.
be in. Sometimes I've got to go in the mornings for meetings, or like a day off, and I go in for meetings. It's crazy. And I'm gonna shout out my amazing wife for being.
Do we need
so,
to put this on the audio, or do you know?
Yeah, right. How many different ways can we replay this? No, but all kidding aside, like she is amazing, and
Is she your age?
she's 5 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm dating an older woman, so it's okay.
I'm dating a younger woman as well.
But
Huh?
no, she's.
Yeah.
No, but she's wonderful, and I mean, when she met me, this is what I was doing.
Yeah.
And she has never worked in this industry. She's never known anybody, closely that's worked in this industry. So her understanding and support is what makes me able to do this.
Yeah.
Because if it was an issue, then it'd be something we'd have to figure out. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
my
Like I would
gosh.
have to take a look at what else I could do. I love this. She knows I love it, and she works full time, and I work full time.
Daytime, like a day
Daytime,
job.
regular hours. So
Normal person.
Yeah, she's
Not service industry.
She's I'm not a normal person, and it has nothing to do with my job.
Sure,
but,
well,
yeah, there's so
That's
many
probably why it
reasons.
works out.
I am not a normal, but it can be hard.
Yeah.
You have to make that time work, and it takes constant work and attention for your relationship and your marriage. And she's so amazing and supporting me in doing this. And it gives me the opportunity and allows me to do this. And someday, I want to have my own place, and maybe I won't be working so many late nights. And that's the goal.
That won't be at first. If
It
you're a
won't be at
business
first.
owner, you're going to be like
I'm going to be
working even more.
I'm going to be working twice as much in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
the goal.
yeah, that's the goal, and it's something
Yeah.
to shoot for. But in the meantime, this profession has been so good to me, and it's given me opportunities that I never thought I'd be able to have any
Nice.
other way. So, it's really because of Christina that I'm able to do this. And the
I
hours,
should have asked that on the air.
the
for
hours,
audio.
the hours can be
That's a
hard.
great answer.
The hours can be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's a
But-
great answer. That's
I mean,
really
it's,
cool
It's
to hear.
honest though. It's honest too.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right, Nate, go ahead.
Going in.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, Jesse, going into kind of our topic, but also like into your realm of things and going into like your endeavors of being a manager of a bar, kind of a specialty cocktail bar, right?
We're trying to establish ourselves as that. It wasn't necessarily that before, but hopefully that we're on some people's radars as somewhere where they can go and get some really quality cocktails.
Well, and the actual name, like Great Southern Whiskey Bar, like Bourbon is huge in Central Ohio. I don't think people realize like how big the clientele really is.
It is huge here.
I mean, it's really, really growing.
Absolutely,
I mean, with the state liquor control, and I'm sure like you've talked with Dino and Scott GK about that stuff, but because they're friends with Jim Canepa.
Yeah, they are.
So I mean, now that we're able to talk about it, but Dino went down with the state of Ohio and picked 7 barrels of Weller Full Proof that's supposed to be coming out. Which
and we've got
going to try to
get
a bottle.
Right? So we've got him coming on in a few weeks here. And I'm interested to hear about that experience. I think that's going to be a great conversation.
Oh, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
You better let me try some of that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And then Che was it's
not going to be ready by the 26th, I'm sure. That's
no, but like whatever. Whenever it's ready, I'll wait.
I need it.
I'll wait years.
We'll have both of you guys on, and we'll do it right here.
There you go.
Yeah, I want 7 bottles right here on the table.
Maybe he'll just bring it. He'll just bring it to the podcast.
I don't think that's how it works, but maybe.
I'm going to try it.
Just roll the barrel.
I feel like you don't just like leave with like, here, go ahead, just take
carries
some.
the barrel around.
You would be surprised with a barrel pick.
Fair enough.
Anyways, so going into like the whiskey realm, because I'm really intrigued about this stuff. So like, what kind of trends do you see with whiskey cocktails, with just your everyday, like your average Joe to come into the shop or into the bar? Is it like interesting cocktails? Is it whiskey neat? Is it your traditional tried and true old fashions, Manhattans?
So we probably do more old fashions and Manhattans than anywhere that I've ever been.
Yeah.
A large part of our clientele are business travelers through the week. And a lot of times, they've had a long day. They come in and they just want what they know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I, along with the bar staff, we've all worked very hard to, curate really what we think to be really good cocktail menus, and we change it seasonally. And I think the word's starting to get out there. It's only been the whiskey bar for a little bit longer than I've been in Columbus, to be honest with you. Before that, it was a different brand, different name, and
just a regular bar,
just
if
a
you
regular
will.
bar. Yeah, it was just a regular bar. So there's some people that come in and they just want what they want, whether that be a Manhattan, whether it be a vodka soda, and so on and so forth. But we also get the people that, maybe they're there a few different business trips, and they come in and you build a relationship. And we talk about stuff, get to know each other. And like, all right, I want you to make some stuff.
Yeah.
Because like, I know you, I trust you, and I want to see what you can come up with for me.
Is that like a creative, like on the spot, like make me some shit?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. Now, I know some bartenders that maybe don't enjoy it as much. And if you're in a certain, like a club kind of a bar where you're cranking out super, high volume, that can be very annoying.
It's a waste of time.
Surprise
at that point,
me!
yeah.
Like, just tell me what you want. You're just gonna want a vodka Red Bull, and that's okay. Just tell me what you want.
Yeah,
and that's okay. But you build up a relationship with somebody, and they want you to make something and kind of show what you got. And I've been doing this for a while now, and it always makes me feel amazing. It's such a high compliment. You make something, they trust you, and they freaking love it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like that is just the ultimate. I'll never get tired of that, and I don't take that for granted, because they're spending their money. They're spending their hard-earned dollars. You know what I mean? And they put that trust in you to make something for them that they're going to pay for.
Are you like sweating bullets like when you create something like right off the spot? Or are you like confident? And
I mean, at this point, I feel pretty good about it. Maybe when I first started, somebody would be like, surprise me, like way back in the day. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I don't know what to I don't know what to do.
I feel like at this point, though, you're pulling out of a playbook.
Yeah.
I mean, when you, like the way that I'm hearing Jake's question, though, it's like, surprise me. I mean, they're not like being like, hey, do that with that, and these are your 4 ingredients, and then you have to really be on the spot. It's more of you have enough experience now. And I was looking at your Instagram page, which is, what is it? 614 Whiskey Neat, right?
Yes, sir. 614 Whiskey Neat.
Great handle.
I mean, it is a great handle.
Right to the point, right?
Yes.
But I'm looking at these cocktails. I feel like if someone says surprise me, and at the very most you say, well, what do you normally like?
That's the first question.
You have this Rolodex or whatever, this catalog in your head that you're like, all right, I'm going to make X. So it's like, it's I don't think it's not as much on the spot as it is like your playbook.
Not necessarily
and you know
for me at this point.
Maybe at first it would have been.
At first it would have been, but like I have a literal playbook. I mean, I have my book of recipes that I enjoy and have been kind of proven for me over the years, and I have them all written down. But also, you're always
awesome.
You're always trying to create. You're always trying to come up with new stuff.
Yeah.
And if somebody's like, surprise me, that'd be the first question. Like, if like, oh, I hate gin. Well, I'm not gonna make them a gin cocktail.
Yeah. Oh.
You know what I mean?
Challenge accepted. You're gonna have a gin cocktail. Fuck you. You're gonna have it.
You're taking it. You're gonna like it.
No, finish it. Finish it.
You want to give the people what they want, and but I love the opportunity to be creative, and it's kind of fun. It's really fun. That's the best part of the job is the creative aspect of it. And you're always being challenged, And the cool thing, you talked about the Instagram. I have some folks that come in that have found me on Instagram, which is such a high compliment, and I appreciate that so much. And they come in and they're like, "Can you make this?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they point to something that I made on there. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's just something maybe I whipped up one day and I thought it looked kind of cool and I liked it and I put it on there and they come in, they want to try it. And like, that's very, I appreciate that very much. So
if I tell you that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, so like the picture that we use for like your post night, like tell us what this was.
That was something I did. I'll be honest, I don't remember exactly what was in that off the top of my head, but that was something that I did with Middle West Spirits.
It was a straight rye.
It involved their rye.
Okay.
That was last Christmas. So, Christina Basham, who works for Middle West.
Who we are trying to get on the podcast.
She's awesome.
Actually coming up.
Yeah, you guys should definitely get on the podcast.
I just spoke to her this week.
She's amazing, and she's been a great friend to me and so supportive. And this was, early on when I was getting to know her, and she was kind enough to include me in a little cross promotion they were doing featuring 12 different bars across the city. And at that point, that was the first thing like that I'd really done. And I was really excited about that. So it's a small thing, but, they put it out on the social media, and I whipped up something based on their rye. I do remember the name of it. It was, I did two. Oh, okay. This was the You'll Shoot Your Rye Out.
Love it.
I love a good pun. Christmas Story. And I did another one.
Great movie.
Put That Cookie Down.
Yeah.
You know the movie, the Christmas movie? You know it?
Yeah.
Jingle All the Way?
Yeah.
Put that cookie down. So I did two.
You have to say it like that.
Put that cookie down. So that was really fun. And that she took that picture and posted that out on their socials. So
awesome,
that was really cool. So I don't remember exactly what was in it, but I wrote it down. It's in my book.
Yeah. I'd like to see that.
We featured it for the cocktail of the week.
Or I'll just come and grab it.
Yeah. Very Christmassy cocktail. It's almost September. It's close enough.
Yeah.
Come by and get it,
Still
man.
like in the 80s. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I could really actually talk to you for hours about like the cocktails and the creativeness of it. But like, have you done anything with like the tried and true Manhattans or old fashions that you put your tweak on it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's
What are some of the?
I was going to ask that question. Like, if I came in and said like a Woodford Manhattan,
So there's something that I really like,
but I don't want like
you
one of
don't
those
want
kind of yeah. No, I want I like this. I like a Woodford Manhattan.
Sure.
But I want something different.
So
That's that kind
you're
of
talking
question.
about the playbook, and I've got something in my playbook, so to speak, that I really like, and I featured it at a couple different places that I worked, and it's done pretty well everywhere. And so I'm a huge music guy. Like I said, originally from New Jersey, so Bruce Springsteen to me he's on Mount Rushmore. And I did a why are you laughing?
Would you say he's like the boss?
I don't think anybody's ever said that before, but I would agree. It's
Would
a
you
good point.
coin that? If now that I think about it,
it's weird. Another, it's like saying I would probably say Frank Sinatra's the chairman of the board too, man.
I mean, I think he has
that's
that kind
damn
of authority.
for sure.
Yeah, can I get credit for that? Coin to that?
We'll fact check that. Hey guys, will you fact check
anybody ever said
that?
that
Is that copyright?
But Bruce is my guy, and so I did a cocktail for him once upon a time, and I named it Badlands.
For him?
Well, not for him. He has no idea it exists.
I was like, I mean, I'm impressed regardless. But I'm like, the way you said that,
it was for him.
Because if it was for him, you just kind of let that kind of roll out. So I made this cocktail for Bruce.
Do you think Bruce is listening? Bruce, if you're listening,
of course. I'm not Facebook friends, but I can't verify that.
I would
love
for you to come by the Great Southern Whiskey Bar and for me to make you a Badlands.
We can also have
Mr.
you on
Springsteen.
the Bourbon BS podcast as a guest.
Yes, it was for. Yeah, he should be your guest. It was for him. He has no idea it was for him, but it was for him. And I called it Badlands, and it's essentially just because I love that song and listened to it a lot when I was making this particular cocktail menu. And it's a mashup between an old fashioned and a Manhattan. It has elements of both, but it is not quite either one. And that's kind of a go-to when somebody's like, I want something I haven't had before. it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but it is still unique. It takes elements from popular cocktails, and people really like it.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure.
got a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweetness. Put it over a large cube. It's just that classic presentation that people enjoy.
I can
if
imagine.
you're a whiskey drinker, and it goes over well. So that's one that's kind of right out of the playbook, so to speak.
It's something as simple as like I went to the Light of Seven Matchsticks.
Oh yeah, PJ is a good dude. Runs that
And
place.
yeah,
The place is awesome.
And one thing that they did with like my old fashioned, what I thought was super interesting and I actually loved, was instead of an orange peel garnish, it was a lemon garnish. And I was like, holy crap.
That's actually going really old school,
It completely changed the whole... That's old school?
It is, yeah.
I had no idea.
Everybody thinks that an old-fashioned has to be like a muddled cherry and a muddled orange, but that's not really what it is. It's just kind of a way that has been done so long in so many bars.
That lemon changed
But you can go back to some of the earliest days of an old-fashioned, and they use the lemon peel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah, they're great up there. Cool spot for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's my kind of style.
Yeah,
like speakeasy.
man. Yeah. And PJ Ford that runs it, he's awesome dude. Good guy, salt of the earth.
For sure. Any questions, Steve?
I do. Go ahead. Go. No. Let's stay on the whiskey train. Let's stay on the whiskey train. Go ahead. Yeah, for a little bit longer.
Stay on the whiskey train.
So, I know we already talked about the trends, and we talked about the kind of your tried and true. But like, what do you still see like vodkas and clear spirits being like a predominant thing? And I mean, even though that it's the Great Southern Whiskey Bar of Columbus, like, is there still a predominant demand, do you think, for clear spirits?
Most definitely. I mean, that's something that is never going anywhere. And we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we didn't cater to everything that everybody would want. So our goal is, we just turned 122 years old. We have way more than that, but we try to have one.
Wait, explain that. Hang on. Wait.
The building?
Building, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
The building.
Right.
Yeah. So initially, a little history real quick. So
before you do that, I'm going to ask you for that Glenmorangie because I just lit up the second cigar.
Yeah. There you go, brother.
Thank
you are very welcome. So initially, the hotel, it's always been a hotel, built in 1897.
Wow.
And it was a result of other hotels burning down in the area. It was built as the first fireproof hotel in Columbus, and to this day is the oldest hotel in Columbus. And it was introduced as the Great Southern Hotel.
Wow. Southern compared to what?
Southern side of Columbus.
Okay.
So not Southern United States.
Yeah, that's just,
That's a lot of people.
Frame of reference there.
Yeah,
it's an interesting title.
A lot of people think that. It has to do with the southern side of Columbus. But, there is the association of whiskey and southern U.S. There's all these, it goes way beyond
perfect.
that. It is perfect.
It's a match
really
made
is,
in heaven.
Right.
But it's always been a hotel, and fairly recently they decided to bring the name of the Southern Hotel back into the fold as a homage to the origins of the hotel. So It's the Great Southern Whiskey Bar in association with that. And it's, we're on South High Street. So it really makes a lot of sense because of that. Yeah, it all fits, and it's cool. And it was Thurber's Bar for a long time, and it was stale, and it was kind of just a bar that was attached to a hotel. And they switched things over, and I think we have an amazing staff there. Aaron and Ben doing just like awesome bartenders there, doing great things, and my boss Jason has got just such a willingness to go along with any crazy ideas that I might have, and super supportive of that. So we've just got an amazing group of people there that are just really all in it for the right reasons, and trying to make the place the best it can be and build up a reputation for the local clientele to come in and get a great cocktail. And so Great Southern Whiskey Bar, if you ask me, I'd rather go to a whiskey bar, than just a regular hotel bar.
Yeah. Of course.
And so it definitely has been paying dividends for us, and it's cool to be a part of that. I came on right at the time whenever they're switching over. So anyway, all that to say, the southern part of it is just in relation to the south side of the city.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It ties in.
I want to ask you guys both to set down your BS, light up your aging room, Nicaragua, because this Scotch definitely changes. While you're doing that, though, I will say, Jesse, the whole topic being stay true, yet always expanding. Clearly, that's easy to use as in relation to what you do, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that you have the respect for like an old fashioned,
Sure.
or a Manhattan, or gin and tonic, or Tom Collins. I bet you haven't been asked for in
You'd be surprised.
ever. Really?
Yeah, it's the widest spectrum of drinks out of anywhere that I've ever worked. We do Rob Roy's, we do Harvey Waldinger's,
Love it. Oh, Jesus.
and we have people coming in for like really
How many
cool.
Boilermakers do you make?
Not too many of those.
Not too many Boilermakers.
But I got you if
Vegas
you need
bombs.
one.
Yeah.
After the weddings, Vegas bombs, all that kind of stuff.
Any
grenade
bomb.
shots.
Vegas bombs.
Any
are
kind of bomb,
awesome.
we do.
Any bomb.
We're not a shot bar, but we'll you give people what they want. And if they're just getting married and they're having a good time,
Yeah,
absolutely,
you got the whole
man.
wedding party in there. You're like,
there's zero judgment.
it's a business.
Like people come in, they're like, I know it's a whiskey bar. Don't laugh at me, but I want to get a Bud Light. Man, you want a Bud Light? I'll give you a Bud Light. Like, who the hell am I to judge you? Drink what you like. What makes you happy?
all right, so
Makes your job easier.
Let me ask you this, and I'll ask you guys both
That's also
this.
true.
I mean, you can. All right, you guys can answer this with the your cocktails, with your job or whatever it is. But I mean, the biggest thing for me when I'm thinking about this topic, and we're obviously staying kind of on the bartending side of it, the cocktails. We're talking about blending cigars and everything else. And then I don't know, did he cut that aging room there already?
Yes.
I did. I haven't
good.
lit it up yet.
I'm really interested to see what you say on this. But one of the biggest things for like stay true yet always expanding. Obviously, this is like we talk about a lot of topics. Is that it's a progressive attitude. It's staying in front of the ball. But you can talk about any aspect, I guess, in life. But for you, Jesse and Jake, Nate, anyone really, and anyone out there that's watching, talk about ruts. Because I mean, like being creative nonstop, 24/7, or you're working maybe 5-6 days a week, right? My thing is that you're going to hit a rut.
Sure.
You wake up, you're drawing a blank. Creativity with some of this stuff is, that staying true is something where you're constantly going back to maybe things that work. Tried and true, as Jake keeps saying, is that something works. But how do you, get past a rut when you're doing this? So, like, you can talk about your job, you can talk about with the family life. I mean, you think about you brought up earlier you were doing how many years? 7-8 years in the producing and the radio side of things, right?
Yeah, about
So
that.
I mean, you're doing that. It's a good job at first, And how old are you,
I'm
Jesse?
38.
38,
Yeah.
same age as I am. So you go through your 20s at some point, and you're doing this, and now all of a sudden you have a rut.
Sure.
So how do you do that? I mean, like that's I think that's the challenge there, is how do you stay true and also be expanding, because that is probably where that career change, I assume, came from.
That's exactly where it came from. So I was working in New York City for CBS Radio, doing some on-air stuff, doing some production, and it was a dream job. It was a radio station called K-Rock. Howard Stern was there before he left for...
That's why it sounds familiar.
Yeah, before he left for satellite radio. He was at K-Rock.
There it is.
And it was, I was getting paid peanuts, but I was doing what I loved.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, there's a sense of excitement, and there's a romantic aspect of being in New York, knowing that you're going in there to earn your living, and you're part of something.
Yeah.
And I was doing that, and it was amazing. And as a single guy, dated or whatever, but I wasn't in anything too serious. I was really focusing on my career. One day, as places tend to do whenever they're changing formats or changing ownership or whatever it may be, one day they called us all in and let us know that they were changing the format to Pop Top 40.
Versus a rock station.
Versus a rock station, you know what I mean? Or talk about the perks of the job. I mean, I'm getting free tickets for Yankees games, Mets games, Madison Square Garden concerts, getting, to rub elbows with some of my, biggest inspirations in the sports and music world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That is why I stayed there as long as I did. And that in the prospect of, I'm going to make it, so I'm doing overnight stuff on air.
Sure.
Someday, maybe I can get to that
do the work,
spot.
it'll pay off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they changed formats, and that was kind of a wake-up call. And all of a sudden, I'm doing stuff that it wasn't really what I signed up for, but it's still a paycheck. You know what I mean? I'm in my late 20s. I'm doing what I got to do. You make it work. It was at that time whenever I started bartending a little bit on the side. And
in New York.
It did some in New York, did some in New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah. And, I felt like I wasn't staying true to myself. I mean, it's to your point of what we're talking about here tonight. I felt a little bit like a sellout. And I had a good friend that worked
Doing
there.
the radio thing.
Doing the radio
still.
thing
Yeah,
staying with that. Because it was like, you have to fake excitement. Like, oh, my God, it was like Maroon 5's in the studio today.
You said that on Dino's one too. Like, do you
Yeah,
not
man.
like Adam Levine, or
I said it was the Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, it was Black Eyed Peas.
Black
I
Eyed
thought you
Peas.
said Maroon 5.
I got nothing personal against Adam Levine. He seems like a nice guy. His music sucks, but he seems like a nice
He's
enough
done well
guy.
for himself.
He's done great for himself.
Jesus,
He's done great for himself, but doesn't mean I have to be excited about it.
That's
you know what
true.
I'm saying?
It's a good
True.
point.
I wish him much health and happiness. Not my kind of thing.
Right.
So, and it's just, like Sean Paul's in the studio today, and I was like, it's just not my thing. And I take my, I've always
I
been
love
really,
the names you're bringing out.
I
it's
would
just weird,
like to meet
right?
Sean
It's weird.
Paul, though.
You'd like to meet Sean
Yeah,
Paul?
I think he's.
He was-
I think he'd be a fun dude.
He was not.
really.
He was not a cool guy.
Was a dick.
Sean
He was
Paul,
a
if you're
dick.
listening, I
shame.
apologize. I mean, you're
Sean
not for
Paul, you were a
everyone.
dick to me in 2009.
And I still remember.
I still
There you have
remember.
Let's talk about grudges.
To this day, when I have him come,
Don't let me go down that rabbit
No,
hole.
but I mean,
Swear to God,
it just-
Sean Paul, if you're watching.
But it was a genuine excitement that I had for my job, and then I felt like I was faking it, and that's where I felt like I was selling out a little bit. And it's just
If you're faking a smile more often than it's genuine,
Yeah.
there's an issue here.
yeah, and then it just wasn't what I wanted. I'm still there. I still stayed there for another year and a half.
Yeah.
But I started transitioning a little bit, and man, I just. I was able to go behind the bar a little bit here and there in my early days in the restaurant industry, but I was really going into it, and I started managing a bar in Princeton, New Jersey, and man, I just fell in love with it, and that was where I was like, this is where I need to be. The money was better for
Yeah.
me, and it was at a point where like you need to make that decision. Am I going to continue to do this even though I'm not happy, or am I going to go a different route that I never expected and have more financial security for myself? And,
Which is the opposite of what you hear from, like, obviously from the bar side of things and restaurant. Like, you're like, this is like a stepping stone while you find your real career.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you still see that.
Still see that.
You still
And-
see that in your day-to-day right now. You
Yeah.
get, like, new servers or new bartenders.
It's like an in-between
Yeah,
job.
and it
for
is
most
for a
people.
lot of people. And
Yeah,
I
it's
and I
interesting.
fell into it when I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
A little bit of experience, but I was a terrible bartender when I was in my early 20s. Like
You gotten better, would you say?
Probably not. No.
What classifies it? What classifies it terrible?
I didn't know how to make anything.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know how to make anything.
I didn't like people. I
they
don't like
threw-
talking to people.
See, that's-
I don't like.
That's the thing, man. Like I genuinely dig talking to people, and that was something that's always kind of been the constant for this, and why I got back into it. But like they threw me behind the bar. I was a server when I was like 21 years old, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
People came in, they're like, I knew how to like pour a beer and pour a whiskey, and that was
Yeah.
it. Like you're coming up for like, can I get a Jolly Rancher shot? And I'm like, sure. And I turn around, I'm like terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, like, I got the vodka.
Comes-
Where are
comes
the
out, like,
Jolly
brown.
Ranchers?
Do you have
What
20
flavor
minutes?
Jolly Rancher do
Who
you
has
need?
Jolly Ranchers?
You have
Where do
20
you keep
minutes
the Jolly
to
Ranchers?
Where are the
I'm
Jolly
looking
Ranchers?
for them. I don't see them in this drawer.
But it was about the time I started taking it really seriously, and to your point, there's a lot of that. People like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this in between. This is a stepping stone to get my real job. And man, this industry has been so good to me. It's it doesn't get more real for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'm proud as hell of what I do. I'm proud as hell of everybody that's a bartender and decides to make a career out of it. And it is awesome how much. And I just want to say this city respects the bartending community so much.
Yeah.
There's a real appreciation for what we do here, and people here more than anywhere else that I've ever lived view it as a real job.
Yeah.
And that is awesome. So
I think
Columbus, you're amazing.
I think any brick and mortar, though, I think that's what Columbus is kind of known for. Is like respecting the brick and mortar.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So it's cool to hear you say that.
I don't get a ton of what's your real job here, and I did once upon a time.
I still
in
get
other
that at
places.
the cigar shop. So what do
Really?
what do you do other than this?
It's a weird thing for somebody to ask.
I think it's
a weird question.
I don't think it's always a negative assumption, but it is an assumption.
Yeah, it's not.
You know what I mean?
They don't mean for it to always be bad, but
And sometimes they mean it as a compliment, like in their mind, like you're at a bar or whatever, you know what I mean,
Right.
like or at, a cigar shop, you're doing whatever it is. I was in the moving and storage industry. It was one of those things where, again, like when I had some like career, if you will, movers, at least in their 20s, 30s, and into their 40s, they've been doing it. They make good money. They're making, in Columbus at times. I think the last I remember, the top earning mover was making close to $60,000 a year. And that didn't include his cash tips.
yeah.
But he was working his ass off, and he had
Yeah.
3 kids at home, and he was supporting a family.
I have a good friend here in Columbus, Mike, who does this. That is his career.
Moving. Yeah.
And he has his own business.
There you go.
And he does very well for himself.
But I mean, that was
Like,
one of
and
those
that's
things.
amazing.
It's like they think that you're too good for the position.
Yeah, like they're trying
You
to
know what I
pay
mean?
a compliment in some weird way.
Yeah, it's a compliment in there. Like, man,
But
you're
surely
amazing.
you must be doing
Yeah,
something
like,
else.
This isn't all you're doing, right? Like, that's the way it comes across, though.
I agree, and you have to take it with a grain of salt because, sometimes, like you said, people don't mean anything bad by it. They're trying to pay you a weird compliment, but it's an odd question.
I don't think they ask the people that are like when you were like 21 or whatever. I don't think they're asking that person that is terrible at it. They don't ask that question. Like, so what do you do other than this? Because they're just so embarrassed for that person. Like, you are terrible.
Like,
at
God
this.
bless him. He's trying. Look at him.
Let's tip him extra.
Because he's clearly new.
God.
But if I may add to this, I think that the dynamics changed within the last like 10 or 15 years, though.
Yeah.
I think like we talk all the time. I mean, look at the
Dynamics
podcast. Like look at the podcast itself, like whiskey, cigars, like the dynamics within those realms have changed. I always like to think is like authenticity is like coming back again, meaning that like these hand-rolled cigars, these handcrafted whiskeys, stuff that takes time and effort and passion and love to make is coming back. So not only does it make
craftsmanship, right?
Yeah. And all of it's coming back. So not only is the love and the passion for those certain things coming back, it's also coming back for the brick and mortars of the cigar industry. It's the people, it's the industries and the businesses that are intertwined in between.
I think there's community to that too.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like when the value's added when they see you, Jesse, or any one of your bartenders like handcrafting a cocktail or something like that. It's not just like Bill from like whatever small bar like making you
like
something
Bill.
or like
I like a good dive bar.
But
that's
what
what
I
you're
mean.
alluding to.
There's
I think there's a class that's coming back.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Like what I mean is I think there's a class coming back with the cocktail scene with maybe it never left. Maybe it's just the popularity of it that's coming. But I think that, I mean, does that make sense?
I think
it's hard
you're
to
saying,
describe.
so I think it's broadening, right? So much like the cigars, I think it's broadening again. I think when you talk about the type of, and I've never been to your bar, and I need to change that, obviously, but
we'll make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a guy that works there. And Steven says, hello from Music City, Nashville. This just says small businesses are making a comeback, and I think that's kind of what you're getting to as well with some of that stuff. And Ray Chester says, morning from Vietnam.
Wow.
Which, yeah. Very
wow.
cool.
Good morning from Vietnam.
Yeah, good morning,
Super
Vietnam.
cool.
That's such a stereotype. But I would say, like, what you're saying is, it's like a quote, right?
Stereotype?
Oh, good morning, Vietnam. I mean,
It's
it's
an
a movie.
iconic movie
yeah, it's
quote.
iconic.
A stereotype?
Well, Robin
Stereotype.
Williams.
It's an easy grab. He's just said morning, but I know where he's at.
Low hanging fruit.
All right.
And
Robin
low-hanging fruit.
Williams.
Yeah, all right. But I think what you're saying though is that it's not just when I think of your type of bar that you're describing, some of these cocktails and stuff like that. It's old dudes drinking and it's rich women drinking these cocktails. It's not your everyday like the bill from the bar you're talking about. It's the bombs. It's the pour me a Jack on the rocks. It's what's your beer special? And beer special doesn't mean what craft brew you have on. It is how many Bud Lights can I get for $10?
Yeah.
So
Right.
now it's the everyday person. It's not necessarily a highbrow thing, is what I guess I'm getting at. It's more of it's expanding, much like this. It's like you're expanding to the point where it's like a person that comes in that's making whatever dollars a year, but at the same time is in a t-shirt and jeans, and not wearing a nice watch, not in a suit and tie, but can come in and do the same thing. Like what kind of cocktails? They look at the menu, they're into it. They're into the different whiskeys you have. They're into the craft brews you have. There's been such a popularity from the business side of it, pushing that out there based on the demand. I think that's a class, but it's not just laser focused on a certain class of people, if you will.
No.
It can be like one of your signature cocktails, Jesse, can be an every man's drink or
Absolutely.
an every woman's drink.
Absolutely.
But I do think that I mean look where your bar is. I mean it's not like in Coshocton, Ohio, or like somewhere like no one's really heard of. It's
That's true.
Columbus.
I mean,
so
it's
it's like
easy
the
access.
clientele is a little different. I mean, I think that we should have a little. I think there's a value there to at least acknowledge.
Absolutely. I mean, but that being said,
That's what I meant by like the whole bill thing.
I understand what you're
know
saying.
I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
No,
and
that's
nothing. Not that it's wrong. It's just like there's a class there, and the popularity's building. And Central Ohio is a huge whiskey network and cocktail network.
Yeah, there is.
It's growing.
I consider myself like I'm a blue collar guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like I consider bartending a blue collar job, and I'm proud as hell about that. And I'm not a fancy man. You know what I mean? I like what I like, and I am who I am. And I can go to a bar, and get a $15 cocktail, or I'll go down to my neighborhood bar, and I'll get like a $3 beer. I'll go. I love the dive bars. Yeah. I personally, if I go into a bar and it's somewhere and I feel like I'm getting like kind of attitude from the bartender, or like it's pretentious, you know what I mean? Like I'm not into that, and I don't want anybody, at the whiskey bar that works there to be like that, and they're not, And I think there's all different types of bartenders. There is that, my shit don't stink. I'm an artist kind of bartender.
Would you say mixologist?
You would say mixologist.
You would say, not me. I'm saying you.
I would. I don't think that. I think
cocktail specialist.
I think it's right. I think the people that act that way would probably call themselves mixologists. And I met some good people that
We're not bashing it 100%. Right?
Not 100%, but
80.
84%. We're bashing 84%.
Point
specific.
I don't want. In any walk of life, I don't care what you do, but I don't want to be around you if I feel like you think you're better than anybody else in this room.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're better than, the dishwasher at that establishment, then like I don't want to be around you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Have you ever ordered a Miller Lite in a craft brew place?
I haven't, but I've.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I've served Miller Lights at craft brew places.
The
and
looks that you get.
So yeah,
hey man, you're like
there are the pretentious, and then I don't even know if I don't think it's a meaningful
because
pretentious.
it's not an IPA.
You know what you get looks from are the people around you.
Sure.
Bartenders like fuck, we don't have it or we do have it, and if you do have it, it's like there's a reason you have it.
It's like, oh God, how dare I order what I like?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry if you can't crack that can. Like we only have it in cans. I'm like, perfect. You need a glass. No, like I want. Like I'm fine. I don't need it. And there's some people like, I want to hide it in a glass, and it's like, no, it's like I'm drinking a Miller Lite.
Yeah, man.
There was a time I was at World of Beer. Which is, if you know World of Beer, people know World of Beer. There's like 500 different bottles and 50-some taps, and it's all beer. At one point, they didn't even serve liquor. And I ordered a Miller Lite, and I'm sitting there with my buddy, and literally this girl was coming across the bar to me, turned around mid-stride, and walked away. About 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I didn't know. So 10 minutes later, sure enough, I'm like standing there at the bar. This other dude's sitting there, and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that girl that was walking over there. I was like, oh, yeah, I saw her. Yeah, she was going to talk to you until she saw you were drinking a Miller Lite. I'm like, well, there's a good reason she didn't talk to me. I'm not going to be interested.
Yeah. Saved you
like, I'm glad it worked out that way.
It's like you don't want to get involved with somebody that wouldn't talk to somebody because they're drinking a Miller Lite.
Absolutely not.
I love
I feel like we're
beer.
not going to have much to talk about.
No, you're not. I love craft beer, and I'm huge into like all that crazy stuff that's coming out. Like I cellar my beers. I've got a bunch of fun stuff in my basement right now. But man, if somebody is like having me over and they're like, here's a Michelob Ultra. Yeah. I'm going to drink the Michelob Ultra and say thank you.
Yeah.
I got a Busch Light in the fridge that was in the river this weekend if you need that later.
You mean Busch?
Busch Light.
Busch Light.
That's right.
Is it a camo can?
It's orange. I think
it's
a summer can.
For hunting.
Yeah, summer hunting. I don't know.
I don't know. Hunting.
Yeah. See, I wish that I like beer just for that aspect, just because
the Busch part.
Well, no, I feel like it kind of like. I don't want to say dumb it down because it's still got a negative connotation.
Do it,
to
just say it.
But I feel like it kind of dumbs it down because like I honestly can't drink beer.
Yeah.
Like I get real bubbly. Like it doesn't taste good to me. I get sick from it. Like even just a sip of it. And I try to, like I've tried like the Imperial Stouts, and the Imperial Stout that we had on here from like Hopping Frogs and with the Knob Creek barrel was actually really, really good. So like. But once again, that's like one of I think some people may say like a pretentious style of like drinking beer. So I feel like if people see that like I wear the hat, like it's me being self-conscious, but like drinking whiskey and like that's the only thing that I drink. I like it neat, no rocks, nothing. Like I feel like it has that connotation to it where it is almost pretentious. But that's where I think like venturing off into seeing like bars like yours and seeing like one that is dear to me is Prohibition up in Powell with Elton, and then Opa in Delaware with Genty,
Genty's a
and
good
then
dude.
we have
Love
Fido. You know what I mean? So it's like these people that are actually really, really down to earth that are still making amazing cocktails and also having amazing whiskeys on top of that. I think
it's the passion side of it.
Yeah, it is, and it's a very interesting thing. So, I think
if you tip your hat though, like if someone offers you something and you're like, no, thank you, you're pretentious. Yeah. Now, for those of you watching the video,
I'm not like that anymore. But first meeting
you say no, thank you, and you say maybe it's like sir or ma'am, and then you tip your hat. No longer pretentious. Like you're absolute gentleman badass. Just the tip.
It's all in the wording.
If you need to practice,
I'll use that.
If you need to practice in the mirror, like that's fine.
Do it. It's your best. Like,
you know what I mean? Just like
it's
just super
it's a
subtle.
difference from here to here, right?
Well, it's just like the very gentle tug down. You know what I mean? You're not really, it's just a tip of the hat.
Yeah.
Immediately classy and gentleman.
Yeah. I tried.
Prove me wrong. Jesse knows I'm right.
I'm not arguing.
That's exactly it.
But staying, I think like getting on to the topic for myself. Like I know that Steve, you asked a question for Jesse and I. Yeah. Do you remember that question?
It was about ruts, So if you get in a rut, and it can be in a successful place, you know what I mean? Because that happens. Things are going well and everything like that, and it's just stagnant, kind of air. Yeah. In whatever it is, personal relationship or business wise, and everything's going well, or things are going bad. There's the negative rut. But how do you do that, without losing yourself, if you will, with the stay true, yet always expanding? Yeah. If things are you're hitting these walls and everything like that, you don't want to lose yourself and completely maybe reinvent yourself, but you can expand. Things are going well, and you're worried that things might become, you rest on your laurels, and things might become stagnant. And therefore, it's like all of a sudden, 6 months from now, your signature cocktails, you're doing the same thing quarter after quarter or season after season. It's like, all right, let's come up with the fall cocktails. Eventually, that's going to wear out. Now, at a hotel bar, which is more than just a hotel bar, but you have these out-of-towners coming in, you have a little wider audience.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's kind of the question for you too, Jake.
Yeah. I think to answer that question, I think for me personally, I look at our topic as, and I think that Steve will appreciate this, is actually as a life metaphor itself, because it's like going through life, but then staying true to yourself, like your morals, your beliefs and stuff like that, and being genuine and in the good aspects of your life, but also growing. Yeah. And I think that I've spoken enough on this podcast about constantly growing, because that's what I'm doing right now. Like I don't think Jesse knows that I'm 24. But so, like, being 24, and I voiced it enough on the podcast, is that it seems that every week, especially like this day and age, it's like I have like a new epiphany every week.
No, I get
where
that.
It's,
I don't think you're alone in that. I think there are people out there that do the same thing. I know I do.
And I don't think
older than 24, man.
Yeah.
Some people never figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think there's an age bracket for that. I think that if people that are constantly trying to strive for greatness, they're always doing that same thing. And it's interesting. Just a little story. Diana, my cousin, that she tunes in. I hope she's here still. We had a family get together at my parents' house this past weekend for my grandfather that just passed.
Yeah, cheers to that.
And
cheers to that.
Condolences.
And he was
cheers to that. Cheers to
bingo.
First microphone down.
Yeah.
Your grandfather's name?
George Lefty Sanders.
I love that he had a nickname.
Yeah, he was known as Lefty. He had a mean left hook. He was in the Air Force, and he was in World War.
That's awesome. That makes it even better.
Towards the end of World War II, and he was a photographer in World War II, which was even more great to carry on his legacy and remember him. But anyways, besides that, we were having a get together, and you know me, Steve, I love a campfire, and you were enjoying a campfire this weekend too.
I was, and two at one point actually.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just put two fire rings together, and then there's motor oil involved.
Mega fire,
naturally.
Yeah. What's better than one fire? Two.
Yes, exactly.
Easy.
And so we were sitting by the campfire, and I was talking to Diana, and we were actually talking about the podcast, and she was mentioning about how how we kind of dive into the life subject, and no matter like what age you are, like there's still value in things. So I'm kind of looking at like, especially how I talk on the podcast, in a different light after that conversation. So
how so?
Well,
if you don't mind sharing.
Well, you know how I always say, like, I'm only 24, like I don't want to give advice, like I don't have any. I mean, I have value because I think I've gone through unique experiences, but I don't want to tell a 40-year-old how to live their life.
It's just perspective.
So
man.
So she was giving me some value in that. So it was nice. But anyways, I think expanding on your question, Steve, with being kind of in a rut, I think that when you're going through changes in life, especially like Jesse, like you just made a big move within the last like 2 years. In coming to here.
Sure, yeah.
So I can only imagine the last 14 months weren't that easy. And so I think since I've graduated college that I've been kind of in a rut through the whole spectrum within like a year and a half to 2 years. But obviously there's been good ways. And here's the key is I haven't stopped though. And I think that's the expanding part where if you're in a rut, it's really important to understand that it is a process.
Yeah.
So understanding where you're at in the process of your life, emphasis on your life, I think it's really, really important when you understand that you've indulged in that process, and when you get down on yourself, you need to expect that there may be other things that will happen, but it doesn't mean you take the foot off the gas.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great episode about that at one point too.
Yeah, so it's like reaching out to people. It's like hell. Like I even reached out to Jesse like when I first talked to him about like being on the podcast, like, hey, do you have any jobs available?
Yeah, can't hurt to ask.
Because it's like
it's
like this is the industry that I want to join.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I've learned
he's the guy to talk to also because growing in it, it's like you don't just be like I'm hiring for a bar manager. What experience do you have? And you're like none. He's like hired.
Right.
Right. Like it's a guy to learn from. You know. What I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Talk to someone that's done it.
Yeah. So I think when talking about this subject particularly, I look at my everyday because that's exactly what I do, where I'm expanding and I go through these mindsets of, well, like I'm down, I'm in this rut, like what do I do? And thinking about the podcast, especially like being a side gig, but also like wanting, I mean, this is like my true passion with being in this realm of the whiskey and the cigars. So it's like, how do I be better about this? How do I get better? Like how does Steve and I's relationship get better with the podcast itself? And I really think that most of it's in our heads when people are in ruts. So what I mean by that is like instead of letting yourself react to the world around you, you're creating new ventures to the world.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
does.
You're owning the world instead of the world owning you.
Well, I think you have to be open to it, right?
Yeah.
And we have, Steven, I think he was the one from Nashville, said, can you guys reintroduce yourselves for the newcomers? And that's good having you on, Steven, if you are a newcomer. Steve Crane here, Jake Sanders, Bourbon BS Podcast. We've got Nate Hale and Dustin Bovey, who are behind the camera, sometimes in front of the camera. They're in the garage as well, which you don't see right now. And then we've got Jesse Hubbard, who is the special guest tonight. So thank you again for being here. So
absolutely. And by all means, if anybody has any questions about anything, bar industry related, feel free. I'll try my best to answer them.
Or how to pick up your life and move.
Yeah.
Or how to change careers.
Right.
Or how to be a bartender and get married.
I
mean, these are like the more. I think
that's
like,
a book right
I'm
there.
telling you,
I mean,
like,
that's a best-selling author.
You
guys
selling yourself
co-write
short.
the foreword for me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I can get it started tonight after a few more whiskeys.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, but what you're
Someone
talking
write
about.
this down. I'm on a roll. You know what I mean?
So what you were talking about, and it's something. So like I have a motto that I try to live my life by, and it's something I've sort of come up with in recent years. And for me, it's something that I have to remind myself of constantly: is don't let my pride get in the way of my progress.
That's huge.
I like that.
And
that's huge. That's nice.
Because sometimes
I have a really hard time with that.
everybody does, man. It's human nature.
Absolutely.
And I consider myself to be a humble man, but we all have our pride, and sometimes that can get in the way of opportunities and moving forward. And it's hard to do sometimes, to get out of your own head and to move on past your pride or your ego and for your personal progress.
Well, no one likes starting over.
Development.
Well, I'll tell you, again, I framed that, again, when you were asking Jake, I mean, even with that pride thing, you doing so well right now, Jesse, I mean, this is a prime example of when things are going well. That sometimes is, everyone, like I feel like that went to the pride in a negative way. But I think when things are going so well, that pride can overwhelm you as well. Like, what do they know? I'm killing it right now. And that progress doesn't need to be stunted by the fact that things are going so well. Yeah. But again, I said rest on your laurels thing.
Sure.
Is like, like with you, Jesse, winning, a couple of awards here.
Yeah.
Doing what you're doing. I think that's a good time where it can actually get in your way even more than when it's negative and you want to like be prideful that what do they know in a negative way? Like I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it can go a lot of different ways. And, I'm very grateful and I'm very humbled by any interest in what I do. So I don't, if anybody were to ever pay me a compliment, I don't buy into that hype. I'm truly grateful. And, I don't, if there is anybody, as there is in life, there's always, a hater or somebody that has something negative to say. Like, I'm not going to absorb that and digest that and let that get in the way of my personal progress of trying to accomplish my goals.
I like that.
Whether it be career-wise or my personal life. And, there's times when I have to remind myself of that, and it does me pretty well.
That's good. I mean, it is a good model to live by, and I think you said it best. I mean, it's like everyone goes through that. It's human nature.
It's human nature. I mean, and what you're talking about, some of your doubts that you're having, man, I've been there.
Yeah.
And I feel like if somebody says that they haven't, then I probably don't think they're very genuine in saying that. Well, because it happens.
Yeah, and that's what
time to figure that out.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I think that with my, I hate to bring it up all the time, but I think with my age, it's like the.
We're gonna do a new drinking game every time you say that.
I
you
know.
hate to bring up your age. We have to drink.
I know.
And we might need more whiskey though. So
that's for sure. Right. There's like 4 bottles.
Nate's got
you guys have been warned, everyone, and you at home, by the way, you mean grab another bottle too.
But what I mean by that, I think that the natural instinct, like for kids my age, is that we have to have it now, and we have to start our lives now, like this.
Yeah.
Like we go through the checklist, like what Steve talks about all the time, and it's like,
and if you don't, you wonder why you don't.
Right, and I have to realize that with the persona that I have and the people that I'm around. Like, I have my own life, too.
Yeah.
So I have my own process that I have to go about.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is like, just, like, everyone has their own processes in their own lives, but when I'm 24 is a lot different when you guys are 38. So it's...
You'd be surprised, man. There's a lot of recentering. I bet you Jesse can say that.
Yeah.
I'll let you go on. But any age, there's issues that come up in life that you're 24 again.
Yeah, but what I look at,
yes,
yes, yeah, but what I look at my life is like I'm still starting out.
Yeah.
So it's like understanding that I have time. Like it's okay.
10 years from now, you're gonna look back at this and wonder why you were in such a rush.
Yeah, I'm gonna wonder why I was so mad, why I was so eager. But I still try to find the balance the best I can to understand that I have to keep moving forward. I still have to expand myself. I still have to learn new things that I'm passionate about if I'm wanting to get into an industry such as this. If I want to get into cigars, I want to get into whiskey. So I need to understand that there is time there where if I was, say, like 10 years from now, I'm probably already there.
Yeah.
Avi says, take your time. You'll figure yourself as you grow. Enjoy that time, which I think is a really powerful statement. So thank you, Avi.
That's great advice.
And Nate's got a question for us as well. Nate behind the board there. I do want to ask before you say that, Jesse, especially since you guys switched over to the aging room Nicaragua, and you're sipping on that.
Uh-huh.
Has it changed at all, the whiskey?
It has. Gone is any of the. For me, I don't get any more of the chocolate or the spice from the cigar. Obviously,
What are you getting?
So it's just almost vanilla.
Yeah.
You too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Which I didn't get any before.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
It tastes more like whiskey as opposed to. I lost a lot of the port.
Yeah.
I did.
I forget that I'm drinking a Scotch.
Me too.
A little bit. Yeah, it's kind of more like a
That
bourbon.
also might be because I've had a few glasses of it at this point.
I think
but
that plays a factor.
that maybe plays a factor.
That plays a factor, but I will say, as soon as I lit up that aging room, it definitely the whiskey like that just changed.
It's kind of more like a bourbon
amazing.
now.
Yeah.
But I still think that richness. I think this is one that has such a bold taste that it's hard to mask.
Not fair.
So I don't know if you pick like more of a powerful cigar, I think it would almost be too much for this, because like this is a whiskey that you have to pair something with it, not the other way around.
Super fun how much it changes just
Isn't
from
that
one
cool?
cigar to the next. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I could get into that.
Nate, what's your question for us?
Well, one of the things that I had written down was, I think you guys have danced on it or danced around it a little bit, was how do you expand yourself while remaining true to your core? But then the base of that is, how do you even find what your core is?
Good
Man,
question.
Yeah, that's heavy.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And sometimes people spend their entire lives like trying to figure out like who they are.
I feel like if you are able to figure that out at any point in your life, and that's something you hold on to, man. That's a gift. That's a blessing.
I think it's a lot of self-reflection. I mean, and that comes with the different. Last week we were talking about, with Jake at his age, everyone drink. No, no. I mean, Jake was saying that like we were talking about the family.
I mean, it is
values.
duly noted. I mean, it's
I'm
not
just kidding.
like
I think it's fun.
Wait,
I think it
Jake,
is
how old are you?
relative.
How old are you?
I feel like it's always relative.
Drink.
That's why I say it.
No, so
I mean, dude,
you're
does it
absolutely
make
right.
sense?
You're absolutely right. I'm just.
It's a joke. I
I'm
know.
literally playing off the part where you're like, I hate to say this, and it's like you don't need to, like, it's absolutely relevant every time you bring it up, which is a great.
I would
part
rather
of
you
this.
talk about your age and me talk about mine, Jake.
There you go. But I think
14 years.
that's part of it, is that it's the core. A lot of the times when people think about the core, I think they look inward. And I think part of what we brought up last week, and one of the things I was trying to really drive home, is you either push back or you have a good childhood, right? It's either good or bad or somewhere in between. But there is that's a big part of the core, the socialization of you as you are maturing through the young years, the adolescent years, and then all of a sudden into your young adult years, and then your middle adult years, and your mid age, and all these different stages. The core is going to change a little bit, but I think a lot of it is actually outside factors. It's not necessarily internal, because everything around you shapes you for who you are. I mean, that's just the way the fucking world works.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's finding your core, to answer that part of it. So staying true to that, it's not just shutting everything else out. For me, it is constantly listening and constantly self-reflecting. I've said it before. If you're in, say, a rut or you're in a bad place or whatever it was, for me, it's not always looking forward. It's about moving forward. But a lot of it is trying to think back of when you were, the last time you felt at ease, when you were happy. What have you stopped doing? Who have you stopped surrounding yourself with? What has happened? Why has your core changed? Because, I mean, for me, it's staying true is constantly bringing the outside in and keeping your ears and eyes open, and sometimes shutting your mouth a little bit just to expand your core. Yeah, and again, looking at your past.
And you have to be self-aware enough to be able to recognize where you have been wrong.
Yeah.
And set that aside and try to always better yourself.
Yeah, Ray Chester says, if you keep searching for, quote, who you really are, end quote, you will never be your true self. Stop searching.
I have a trouble with that, because
all of that, or
no, not the whole thing. So here's my thought. So like people say that if you have like you are who you surround yourself with, right?
Okay.
But if who you surround yourself with, if you find them negative, like you're not around them. So are you alone at that point, or do you confide in new people that you think that are more positive, or do
I think you separate yourself from the negativity.
Right, but
if that doesn't make you better and bring out the best in you,
right,
and it's hindering your development.
Exactly. So here's my point is that when I do that, I internalize things, which isn't a bad thing because I think that is who I'm like. Not soul searching, but I internalize my thoughts, where I'm thinking about everything myself. I'm not looking for opinions through others. I'm not like confining in others. I'm thinking about myself and myself only. So here's where I have a problem with what Ray said is that what Ray said, and not a problem, but with what Ray said, and also because I know that Steve, that you look to the outside.
Not only.
Go
ahead. Go with it. Yeah.
But I find it funny that when we are in a negative like surrounding, that we lose or that we escape that, and then most of the time we're alone. But when it's a good surrounding, we embrace that. So what I think in my head is that I'm very internalized. So like either way, if I'm in a good surrounding or a bad surrounding, I've had a trouble with the whole saying, like, you are who you surround yourself with. And I think that's because I think of the whole saying as of the perception of others, of the group itself. So I think that...
You feel that group does not define you.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. So I think that I look towards soul searching in my own beliefs. So like what makes me happy? Like what at my basic level, when I'm just thinking about random things, what drives me? What do I think is best? What do I think is bad? So what I mean by that is that it's hard to really explain because we're diving down a rabbit hole here.
No, go ahead. And we passed that, Nicholson.
When
while he's diving in that rabbit hole, I'm going to dive into that bottle.
But when I'm thinking about myself, the only person that can bring me out of that hole is myself. Like I can either convey in others, I can cry on a shoulder from others, but no one else is going to allow myself to feel a certain way unless I think it that way.
And Ray says, I agree that who you surround yourself with does not define you. My question, though, is so
I feel like what I was saying was very confusing.
No, I think it's actually on point.
It's hard to vocalize.
I wrote down when you said, where did that come from? Why do you stop? So, like, my whole point is it's not about defining you. Like, the other people around me is not a defining factor for me. I'm not necessarily like benchmarking myself of where other people are at. I'm saying I am constantly learning.
Right.
So that's all the things you're talking about, and I think people go through this a lot. I've been through there. Is that when you start benchmarking or you start saying, like, it is who you are. It is as basic as, like, for me, it's the same mentality or same quality of a good kid running with a bad crowd.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily like, yeah, maybe they're trying to fit in, but they don't even realize that. People outside realize that they have altered themselves because of who they're surrounding themselves with. Sure. It may not be a rebellion thing. It may not be something that they're like, oh, no, I want to be in this bad group. It's just that's the welcoming factor. That's who you're spending waking hours with. So the point is, you can internalize everything like you're talking about, the soul searching, but where the fuck do you think that came? And I'm not saying that to you necessarily, but in general, like in conversation, where do you think that came from? It came from your upbringing. It came from all the outside factors. So I guess maybe it came across wrong to some people. Maybe it came across right. For me, I don't want to stop that because, as I said last week, you can internalize all you want, and there are some good self-reflection techniques, and that's what I was saying just a moment ago. But there are billions of people in this world, and believe it or not, when you walk out that front door to go to work, to do something, to enjoy yourself, those people are out there, and you need to not push everyone away. So it's not necessarily for me that it's, if I'm drinking whiskey and you think that's bad, I can't talk to you, or, whatever it might be. It's like, no, I like to surround myself with common hobbies, with all that stuff.
Well, good, bad, or ugly, it's inevitable that you are going to have traits of the people you surround yourself with rub off on you, and vice versa. And to that point, at no point in my life do I ever want to be the smartest or most talented person in the room that I'm in. Yeah. I always want people that I can learn from, whether it be my professional career, whether it be personally speaking, people that are better at something than I am. And then I can just digest some of that information and maybe apply it to my own life.
That's the mentality I think that I was trying to convey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said that. Yeah,
no,
I think that's where you're going with it.
Kylie said.
No, I liked it.
What a great quote, man.
Go ahead.
I had no idea.
You want me to
read it? Kylie said, she brought up a quote, and I think she nailed it, and it's exactly what I was trying to say. Here, Eleanor Roosevelt coming from the grave here, but, Jake was kind of saying, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, Eleanor Roosevelt. So I think that's
and
that's tried and true, man.
You remove that negativity, like Jesse said. You remove that negativity out of your life, so that then you do maybe have to cut someone off, in my opinion, and then go surround yourself with a new group of people, or at least introduce some new people.
If you're the best one in that group, you know what I mean, with the most potential, the most promise.
Yeah,
it's like a bad relationship.
The brightest future. Then you need to join a different group.
But we
surround yourself with others.
But we talked not too long ago about what was that subject that we had when we were talking about do you if you're having a rut, do you find yourself either conveying in others, or do you spend more time by yourself to reflect?
I don't think that was a subject, but it definitely came up.
And I still think Jesse, just you getting to know me, I would rather spend 3 hours or 4 hours or an entire day by myself, sitting down, having a glass of whiskey and having cigars and reflecting on myself, than being with people that even people that I love, that I want to convey to.
Well, it's not as black and white as saying introvert, extrovert anymore.
No,
There's
it's
so
not.
many various degrees of that.
No,
and
not at
I
all.
know myself, I am neither an introvert or an extrovert. I probably lean more towards being an extrovert. Man, sometimes I just want to be by myself, especially if I just work 10 hours and you have to be on and engage with people and you have to be on your A game.
It's exhausting.
It can be. And, just go home and crack open a beer or have a glass of whiskey and watch Office for the millionth time or whatever it is, or just sit and write about my day sometimes, or jot down recipes. But it depends, man. And that's awesome that you want to do that.
I think there's a mix there, right? There's a balance.
But I think that's staying true. And
go ahead, man.
No, I think because
it's always a balance.
Well, it is a balance,
It's
and obviously
always a balance.
that's. I guess I'm talking
Not
more
as a joke,
the
but it's
outside
true.
factor. I think I'm talking about the outside factor of all that, and you're talking about more the internal factor. And I'll take this conversation to that point where it is a balance.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm the first to admit it as well. I mean, Jesse, it's doing the cigar shop and retail and talking to people
all day long, right?
There's definitely a bartender mentality at times where you're
service,
talking to
man.
people, and in the cigar community it's people are going through problems or whatever it is, it's conversations, and if you truly enjoy what you're doing, it's not necessarily part of the job the vast majority of the time. You actually are enjoying these conversations. You see some regulars, and now you're close.
It can be a beautiful
now you're
thing.
friends. Now you see them outside of work, all that stuff. That's
Yeah,
how
man.
this whole thing went.
Absolutely.
But there are times where at the not necessarily at the end of the day, more or less, it's on some of my days off, it's I have a complete recentering where it's I don't even want to leave the house. I mean, I need an actual day off. It hits me about once, maybe twice a month, but it definitely hits me.
As important as it is to be able to take care of others with what you do and what I do and what a lot of other professions involve, you have to take care of yourself too. You have to have that that time for you, whether that's just reflecting or whatever it is, it's the stress reliever, exercise, go get a massage, whatever it is that you need to do in your life to kind of recenter. There's a lot of different things. You have to do that, and for everybody it's a different approach and it's a different balance.
So what would you guys let me? You guys diagnose this, and Kylie as well, since she's giving advice here about her therapy. She's great tonight, by the way. But
she said she was late tuning because she had tuning in because she had an event.
Yeah,
what's more important than this?
Shutting that event off just so you can tune in.
And Alex Ryan was in here too, so he said, "Great discussion,
Alex.
guys."
Yeah, thank you.
But so let me picture this, and you're gonna
paint us a picture.
You're gonna make fun of this, but because it goes along with my whole idea of things with the velvet robes so imagine this
full circle
clothes on, right?
Yeah. So I've noticed in myself, and I think Steve's noticed this too, is where
in you.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that if things are astray and I'm reflecting, I would rather, I'll say this to add on to the bucket, is that I'd rather be alone, but would make it even better is if I was alone but within a company of a lot of people.
That's what you would prefer.
Yes. If I had to pick like my perfect,
random people, or are you talking about people you know?
Random, it doesn't matter.
So
Look
in
at a
crowd.
library.
But
as
long as they're not
Yeah.
talking to me like for example, like a while ago, like Steve was hosting and we were, beyond the BS, and we were sitting here, and I just wanted to go sit outside and have a cigar, and while listening to the conversations on the inside the garage itself,
Yeah.
I also wanted to be alone in my own thoughts.
Yeah.
It's the comfort of knowing that you have other people around.
Yeah.
You're not truly alone.
Not truly alone,
Yeah.
but you're choosing to make that decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's.
I'll throw that in.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know what that means, but
It's what's right for you, man. There's no right or wrong. Ultimately, it's what works for you as an individual and works for everybody. Everybody's got their own,
yeah.
Well, I like that because it's almost I was about to say passive, but it's more of an active thing where, going back to the theme of this topic of stay true yet always expanding. That is for you, Jake, when you're sitting out there, you're in the company of others, so you're not truly alone. You're doing your own thing, but you even said you're like listening to the conversations in the background.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily completely tuned out.
No, I'm not.
You're still tuned in, but it's almost like I don't know. So
It's weird.
I think that's kind of the same thing as, watching. You're more comfortable watching like TV or something on your phone or whatever it might be and really dialed in, and you have that social interaction, but you're not interacting back.
Yeah.
Not even quite like what's going on here, because I do like
Yeah.
this part of it, that there's some interaction that, and I
We're
appreciate
sitting at a
everyone
bar by yourself.
sitting in a bar by yourself,
Yeah.
where people can look down on that sometimes, but at
They
the same
can, but
time,
there's nothing wrong with that.
You at least have Jesse across the bar or whatever, so you have that outlet if you need it to get
Yeah.
yourself out of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a social interaction. You're not truly on an island.
Right.
It's the
You know what I
comfort of
mean?
knowing it's there if you choose to
I like that.
participate.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So I think that's where I stand with that.
But again, you're not always like that.
No, I'm not.
So that's where I think that goes back to the balance.
Yeah, it's not black and white.
No, certainly not.
It's not all one or all the other.
Yeah. So, do you think, Steve, that this would be a good time to dive into our closing remarks?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So normally how we do this, Jesse, is we dive into our closing remarks, and that's kind of like it can be either be like your final thoughts of the podcast or however have you, but we'll kind of trickle down here. So I hate to put you on the spot here, but you're up first, and I'll
Thanks for
go, and
being
then
here.
Steve.
Thanks for being here. Go. No one's watching except everyone's watching.
So is this like Jerry Springer's final thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good.
Totally.
Yeah. You don't really talk about the fight that just happened on stage. You know what I mean? You're talking about what
You can
he
talk
was
about the
talking
podcast, the subject, what you want to say, anything. Go.
Sure. I think for everybody listening to this live right now, or that's going to tune into the podcast later, I think this is an important topic that we touched on today. It's something that a lot of people deal with, the uncertainty of, who they are at that particular time, where they're going, and how to make that change. And I think it's healthy. It's important for everybody to realize that they're not alone in this. We all go through this in some capacity at some point in our life, maybe multiple times, maybe over and over again through our lives, whether it be 24, 38, 58, or 100 years old. You're always growing. You're always learning. You're always trying to be the best version of yourself. And to know that there's other people out there, many, many other people out there that are going through the same things, hopefully if anybody's listening to this and they're going through a similar thing, they can take comfort in that, knowing that they're not alone,
I like that.
Because we've been there before, man, and I'll be there again at some point in my life, whether it's uncertainty with my career or uncertainty like someday, like, God willing, I'm going to be a father, uncertainty like, how the hell am I going to do this? Or whatever it is, I don't trust anybody that seems to have it all figured out, because I think
They're lying.
They're lying.
Most likely, at least to themselves.
At least to
agree.
themselves.
I agree.
And
They got a curveball coming down the plate.
We're all going through something, and I just hope everybody listening remembers that if you're going through it, or if you know somebody that is, but be understanding, be compassionate, and be a friend, and maybe a sounding board if they need that.
Yeah,
I
like that.
This is a good talk, guys.
Yeah,
and like some serious, some important, some heavy stuff, but. Like
you didn't know that was coming, did you?
I didn't, but I'm glad. I'm glad that it did, because we can all relate to that. I know I can, most definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
we appreciate you being on.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
And good luck on your endeavors.
Thanks, man. It was very formal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just being like
so there's the
14
door.
months.
All right, Jesse, take care now.
Good luck on your endeavors.
I mean, like,
show
just
yourself out.
Just like zooms in on Jake and I. Like you're like, what?
I just mean like being a year in Columbus and like doing your thing here, and like also like starting a family and stuff like that. I mean, it's incredible.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you a little bit, but
I get it.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
I don't do well with jokes if you haven't figured that out. Anyways, I think staying true. I think I'm a little more comfortable in my own skin than I even recognize. So I think that
I second that.
So
for you,
I think that when people are second guessing themselves, that's like the dagger in the heart, where like you have to understand like how you feel is the way you feel, and staying true is to yourself. I still look at that as like the metaphor to life based on the topic, is that staying true yet expanding, even with like the cocktails, you know what I mean? Like so allowing yourself to understand like the tried and true, like what you've done in situations past, like what worked and what didn't work, what situations have continued to come up throughout your life that you seem to think that they either resembled each other or were similar situations. I think it's important to understand that, and I said that last week too, where I can attest to 3 situations in my life with football alone through middle school, high school, and in college, where I had to not necessarily man up, but I had to stick to what I thought was right in my word, and I had to really stand up for what I believed in and stand up to my morals. And if that meant if that even meant not necessarily calling out, but mentioning to a hierarchy or a coach that they didn't stand to their word, I was willing to do that because I thought that was right based on my morals.
Good for you, man, because that's a hard stance to take sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people struggle with that, and I think that they struggle with that because they want to do something that they know that's right. And let's be honest, I think that the majority of people are in right standing with their morals itself. It's second guessing themselves and second guessing that they don't know what's right from wrong because they get told a million different things from day to day. So they don't even know what's right and wrong anymore, but they do. And I think that, listening to our viewers and our listeners, I think it's important to understand that you do know what's right and wrong, and what you are feeling is a true feeling, and understanding that is really, really who you are. And I think as long as you pay close attention to what drives you in those moments, whether you're feeling a certain way, I'm not saying like go on a complete like outrage or burst and like tell someone to fuck off or something like that, but understanding that if you feel like something's wrong, I feel like we as humans have an obligation to say whether that's right or wrong. So I think that like I think that's a true testament to ourselves, staying true while also expanding on that and understanding that when we know our morals and we find that out, the next step is, well, how do we grow from here? What's my passion? What do I do for me? What do I do for the rest of my life? How do I get into these passions? And that's building connections. It's building connections with Jesse. It's building connections through the podcast. It may be doing something that I venture off and do myself. Who knows? But I have to make those decisions myself, and no one else can. So I think that this has been a really great topic, and it's been awesome talking whiskey and cocktails with you. I could talk about that stuff for hours, Jesse.
I feel like that conversation's not over.
And it's not. And I know that he's not allowed. I would like to see the playbook just to. I know it's proprietary.
It's like a coach.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you can't. No. Even the head coach doesn't even show all the other coaches.
Run the plays. You don't get to see the playbook.
That's it.
I'm playing.
I know, but I still want to pick your brain throughout beyond the BS. But I hope that some of you got some good insight through this, and I hope that it helps someone out there in their lives. So, Steve,
I know I learned a lot from both of you guys, and also from the crowd. And before I mention my little closing remarks here, I want to thank Jesse for being here. I learned a lot, and I do plan on coming out to your establishment to learn more about these cocktails.
You
can
I'm say
so
surprise
intrigued.
me with something, right?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to walk in and be that asshole customer. You know what I mean? Like,
I want like an egg white with orange peel.
Not an asshole customer.
Yeah. No, I will be. Don't worry. But no, and I want to thank our sponsors, Altadis USA, Romeo, Monte Cristo, Upman, all that, all their whole catalog. Again, you're going to see some changes, I think, coming up based on the conversations that Jake and I have had with Altadis, which I am excited about, continuing that agreement, as well as some other companies. Tinderbox at Easton, Brian, and everyone that works there, including some of the guys that are here in the garage. We couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you for the BS, which is another sponsor, but that's all through the Tinderbox. And the Aging Room Nicaragua from Altadis. I love the fact, and I love the fact not only that I had it, but Jesse not being like, he enjoys cigars. That's what he said when he came in. He's like, I really enjoy cigars, but I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
And being in the world of whiskeys and even more, just spirits and libations and everything, and then you like lit that up. And you're like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, I'm all about this. I think that's really cool to see.
Yeah, it was a treat for sure.
I think that's the same for me. It's, and probably Jake too. That's the same kind of thing when you make a cocktail for someone and they take a first sip and they're like, oh wow, like it gives you a little bit of that sense of happiness that you were able to influence that person in some maybe a very small way, but now all of a sudden you introduce something. I like that.
Good to make people happy.
Absolutely.
You're in the world of flavor. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that can be taken the wrong way too.
Like the guy Fieri.
I'll try to keep it brief. One thing I didn't talk about tonight: staying true, yet always expanding. I will say for me, I am at this point in my life, I'm about to turn 39 in a little over a month, and the last several years have been very good for me because being a creature of habit, like a lot of people, I felt like at a certain point I found what worked for me, and the things that weren't working for me, I was stubborn enough to keep trying those things. So when I think about the topic tonight, staying true yet always expanding, I struggle with that same thing that Jake's alluded to and Jesse's talked about, and I think everyone relates to, is that it's the second part of that, yet always expanding. When things are going not so well, it's very tough to open myself up because I also internalize myself and sometimes can push away things because I feel like what I'm doing is the right way to do it. When things are going well, it's even easier for me to do that. I'm going to eat the same things. I'm going to have the same workouts. I'm going to go to the same job. I'm going to surround myself with the same people. But a lot of times it's it's almost too late before something changes where the stagnant air in the room of your life really starts stifling you. Your creativity goes down. You realize you wake up and things are still going well, but you're fucking bored. There's no enjoy. It's sucking the air out of the room.
Do you think you've not masked, but do you think that? Do you think that's you've expanded with the podcast itself?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the people I've surrounded myself. This podcast is huge
because I've seen a fire that kind of ignited. Probably
saw that early on.
6 months. Yeah, but about 8 months ago, you really started diving into.
Well, I started, the
podcast.
Yes,
so
there's all aspects of that. I mean, a lot of things have happened in the last year.
Now you
life.
text me shit in the middle of the day. Not shit, but text me stuff in the middle of the day like you're working on it. So it's like,
no, I'm constantly working on this. So it is an outlet for me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's part of it. Is that was breaking away from it. I mean, even with the job I have, it was never natural for me to like take a selfie video of talking about, like I do Tasty Tuesdays, and it's about, the cigar I'm smoking and what we have, something new, something we haven't talked about or whatever it is. It's more or less like it's getting out of your comfort zone. That's for me something where it's yet always expanding. It is so easy to, quote, stay true, end quote, because that is just who I am right now. And everything I talked about, like having the people around you before in the past and what made me who I am up to that point, the life's not over. So the finite time we have on this earth, I'm not done at 38.
Yeah.
So 39 comes around, 40 comes around, as many years as that I'm given on here, on this earth, and you guys much the same. The always expanding part for me is the most important thing that is very, very unnatural for me as a person. And I know I'm not alone in that.
Don't let pride get in the way of progress.
Don't let pride get in the way of progress.
There you go, brother.
To your point. So that's where I learned a lot about it. Like, I don't want to lose myself in it, so I want to stay true to myself, but I also don't want to hit a rut when things are going well, and I certainly don't want to feel like I'm in a rut when things are going poorly.
Yeah.
Because that's quicksand.
Right.
That is going to be basically just, when I say suck the air out of the room, that's sucking the life out of you at that point.
Yes,
so
sir.
that for me is the biggest thing that I think I want to touch on, and something I learned from listening to the two of you guys on the air. And Nate and Dustin, thank you guys for being here and contributing as well. Dustin on the Facebook Live feed, really helping out, talk to some of the people that are listening. Nate on the board and asking some questions. So I know I learned a lot from this, and I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the support. And I know I don't want to speak for Jake, but I do right now. He appreciates all of you guys as well, and the sponsors.
Thank you, Steve. So thank you, Jesse. Happy Thirsty Thursday, everyone. This is episode 82. I'm Jake Sanders.
I'm Steve Crane.
And we are the Bourbon and BS podcast. Thank you, everyone. Please like, please share, and please tell a friend, because we value that, and we know that they will value you for sharing it with them.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously. So, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Cheers.
Cheers.